Welcome to the Puget Sound Underground Podcast. Today on the podcast, we have military veteran, cybersecurity expert, father, and nonprofit director, Francis Charles. Francis, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, James. Yeah, thanks for having me here today. Hearing all of that, it just seems like that belongs to someone else. All of these kind of accolades. I'm just a guy out here just trying to help everybody else, do a little bit more, a little bit better, live a much more fulfilling life. But thank you for having me.
Hey, that's a big accolade, man, helping people be the best version of themselves.
Absolutely.
We don't have enough of those people.
Well,
right?
Yeah, I think we do. I think some of them are, just trying their own way. They're not as loud, they're not as proud, but they're out there doing the good work.
That's big.
Yeah,
that's big.
Yeah.
Well, it's always good to hear some positivity in a voice in a society that often is very negative, and we live in a very strong cancel culture these days.
Yes,
to have positivity being pushed into the world, I think is a big deal. And obviously we'll get into a lot of your ideologies and ways you live throughout the podcast. But knowing what I know of you, you just have a lot of very unique ways to look at life. And I think when people hear what you have to say, it resonates because the way you communicate is very, very straight, right?
Well,
it just makes a lot of sense.
I try to cut corners, to get the message out. Sometimes I think we just have so much we want to share, so much we want to give, so much we want to say, that it gets lost in the mix. I could probably talk for days, about, what I see or what I think about. But we don't have days to listen.
Unfortunately,
To have this conversation now and to be able to broadcast it to others, I think it'll be fun. Hopefully, we can reach out and help some people along the way.
Absolutely.
That's what it's supposed to be about. If you think about it, like that's our rent on Earth, right? It's to help each other. So while we're here, let's give it a shot.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, let's start at the very beginning. Let's give some context to our listeners
here.
Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
Wow, that's another story that could go for 6 days. So I was born in the Virgin Islands.
Nice.
I was born in St. Thomas and grew up on St. John. And around the time I was about 6 or 7 years old, my parents and I moved to Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, boy.
And that was fun. Like, I still have very vivid memories of going to see my dad play cricket in the same field that I went to school at. I remember, like, it was this crazy memory of, being up there during graduation at kindergarten and giving a speech. I don't remember why I was giving a speech. I just remember having to practice and hold my little paper and read my words. I remember, walking home from school and the neighbor dog, chasing me, and all that stuff. Had great times. I remember my dad walking me down to the beach and, he would go across the field and grab some sugar cane from someone else's field, and then we would split that on the way, just eating fruits. And, man, it was just a great time there. But, times change and opportunities, appear. So we moved to New York. And it happened to be that I met a significant amount of my mother's side of the family there. They were originally from the small island of Dominica in the Caribbean. Yeah, man. Yeah, so, I'm a first generation U.S. Citizen.
That's awesome.
Growing up in New York was fantastic, but not in the New York of today. Fantastic. It was a crucible. It was a pressure cooker. When I was there, it was the time of the crack epidemic of the 80s and gang violence and all of that stuff. And we were poor, right? Like we were, hand to mouth, working jobs. My brother and I, we would be going to school by ourselves, latchkey kids, growing up during that time. So, it was a struggle. But I wouldn't change a single day of it, to be around my family, right? Like we have a definite sense of community within our family. My cousins were my best friends growing up, and I have way too many to even list. Sorry, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to test myself with
We
that.
would be here for 6
Yeah,
days.
that would definitely be 6 days. Yeah, so, growing up in New York and just being able to meet and interact with it at a long term, so many different peoples from different cultures, people from different islands in the Caribbean, people from Europe, people throughout the country in the United States itself. Just having the opportunity to go to school with them, to do Boy Scouts, to do several things that I never imagined that I'd have an opportunity to be a part of. That's what New York brought to me. So my heart is always there. I've not lived there for a long time, but my heart is always in Brooklyn. I'm a Brooklyn kid, still a Yankee fan. So to all of the Mariner fans in this area, I
So
apologize.
sorry.
You can't take that away from me. Plus, my father would beat me up if he
Sure.
told me that I switched sides. So we can't do that. So interesting. Like you go through, education and New York City education back then was top notch, right? It still to a certain extent is. But I was even fortunate enough to get accepted into some kind of advanced classes, right? So advanced programs where they taught, 2, 3 grade levels above your typical age. It started off with the Astor program. I entered that at 4th grade. And funny thing is that we had the same teacher 4th, 5th, and 6th grade
Whoa.
to teach this,
Whoa.
to instruct the class.
It's unusual.
What's even more unusual is that we're still friends on Facebook today.
Whoa.
Right, absolutely. Mr. Alan Oswald, hello.
Shout out.
Yeah. One of the most instrumental teachers I've ever had. He was one of the ones that would, he was the existential hippie, right? Tweed jackets.
I love it already.
Elbow pads.
Yes.
And then when we were taking our quizzes or our tests, he'd be playing music and dancing around the class. Like it was the most fun thing. He introduced me to jazz. He introduced me to
nice.
Steinbeck.
Yeah.
He introduced me to classical music. We had and the field trips, one a week.
Wow.
Right, one a week. And in New York,
That's
this
huge.
one a week is going to the Guggenheim, going to the Met,
Yeah.
going to Broadway shows, going to Canal Street, and eating some of the freshest seafood that the East Coast can provide. So we had an opportunity, right? We'll get into some of the educational changes, right, from then to now, and,
Right.
and hopefully can talk about some of the struggles that some of the less advantaged kids, don't get to, and ways that we're looking at, addressing or meeting some of those needs. But that opportunity, that experience growing up, like it opened my eyes into what was possible, right? Or maybe even to imagine what was impossible, But having said that, I was also fortunate enough to go to Brooklyn Technical High School. Still, okay, again, in my heart, my opinion, best high school in the country. Okay, that's my alma mater.
Yep.
But, we have several just great human beings. I'm not even going to say professionals. I'm not going to say, no talents and stars or executives. I'm going to say these are just great human beings that I had the fantastic opportunity to go to school with. And they broadened my horizons in ways that I didn't know was possible. They brought things out of me during creative writing class or during architecture or computer science class or biology, like all of these different disciplines. You had all of these minds throughout the city coming in and pouring and sharing, collaborating. It was absolutely, breathtaking when you look back upon it to be exposed to that. Because, like, in the back of my mind, again, sometimes you don't feel like you deserve those things. Sometimes you don't feel like you feel special and you feel honored and you feel uncomfortable, right, being there, right? Like, am I supposed to be here, right? Am I really in this echelon? Yeah. Is this really my group, right? Is this my cohort that I'm going to be, probably socializing with for the rest of my life? Wow, that seems like a huge charge, right? later on, you'll understand that I became an introvert, you know, but we'll get to that.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
right,
maybe,
right.
right. But, you know, you have all of these experiences, all of these people, conversations and opportunities. So I think after a while, it became a lot for me to bear, right? First kid, first going to college, first all of these firsts, and the pressure built and built. And I think um, I I had a moment where I just rebelled. You know, it was like all of this pressure, all of this expectation, and I rebelled. I was like, God, you know, what if it's not what I wanted to do? I think that was the first time, right, that you start asking yourself at that age, because, you know, I've been so diligent, going to school, studying, you know, all the fun stuff. Um, but I think at that time I was like, is this really what I wanted to do? So I rebelled. I challenged myself, right? And decided that I didn't want to go to school, right? Right. Um, um, and when I did, well, I did go to college, you know, right out of high school. But I didn't do so well because I was really less into the education and more into the experience,
That's so interesting.
right?
And it's something that we see a lot in military people too, who get to taste a lot of different culture, right? And see a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And you, from a very young age, it sounds like, had a lot of ability and opportunity to just taste a lot of different things. I mean,
Yeah.
a field trip every week,
Yeah.
right? You got to see a lot of different things, that you got to be exposed to a lot of different things. And
Exposure.
maybe it wasn't all like, oh, I connect with every single thing, but it's a tasting,
Yep.
right? You get
Yep.
to go see a lot of
It's
different
sample.
things.
Just
Yeah.
sample,
Yeah.
sample. It's part of life. It's there. You know, I know I was fortunate, you know, to be in that situation. But you know, if there's anything I can learn, is that that's the type of information that you bring back home and you share with everyone else, right? Like you bring everyone else up to speed. You give them an understanding of a perspective that they don't have, right? They have different trajectories. We all started from different places, but we've met somewhere, so our trajectories have our paths crossed. And so, at that moment where our paths cross, hopefully we can exchange information, right? That'll help you get closer to where you want to get to, and it can help me become the person that I want to be, right? So that's, to me, is where these collaborative or sharing and knowledge transfers, you know, go on, and that's the benefit of it, right? So you go to college, you know, I said I didn't want to do that. I really was about the experience, and college just wasn't a good fit for me, right? Even though I'd been a geek probably all my life, right? You know, math, science, you know, nerd.
Yep.
But it just didn't draw me at that time. I was really much more interested in the humanities, the people behind it, the social scene, the kind of cultural concepts, right? The structures, government, law, you know, all of that fun stuff. I say fun to me because it interests me, but really to think about that. So I didn't do well in school. Flunked out the first try. Yeah, it was a rough landing too. Let me tell you. And it was around that time that my baby sister was born.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I'm at home waiting for my mom to open up the envelope to see that I had flunked out of school.
Ooh.
And I'm holding my sister in defense,
Yeah.
going, you know, I have a human shield now.
She can't hurt
You
me
can't
if I'm
hurt
holding this
me.
kid.
Right?
Smart.
Yeah. You know, the diabolical, maybe. I don't know. So, you know, my mom and I had a really good conversation at that time. Like she didn't, she was upset, obviously, because she was disappointed, but not angry, right? And we had a real conversation. And she helped me see that what I desired was structure and discipline in the face of all of this chaos, right? Was to put order to what I was experiencing. So, you know, several of my family members were already in the military, and after talking with them for a bit, I made the choice to go into the Army.
Nice.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Right. And I gotta say, if I thought that school had prepared me for life, no, it did not.
Yep.
Right? Like the Army in 94 is January 94.
Oh, yeah.
I went in. And it was probably the third most life-changing event that ever happened, because immediately I understood that my individuality was not as important as the community.
That's the name of the game.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, you find people from different backgrounds, and we chat about this. You and I, we've chatted about this offline, where we go, you have so many different people from different backgrounds who are here by choice. It's a volunteer service, right? So they're here by choice, but that choice may have been influenced by different things in their life.
And usually are.
Right? Some people have a sense of duty and patriotism, and that's fantastic. To see people who care so much about their country, to care so much about the people in it, that they are willing to put their lives on the line for it. And salute to them. You keep that charge going.
Yeah.
I still feel it in my heart too.
Yeah.
Makes me well up a little bit every
yeah.
single time you tap into that oath.
It's a powerful thing.
It is a powerful thing.
It's not something you just sign your name on the dotted line for without understanding. I
No.
mean, you sign your name knowing your life could be taken for this cause,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
It's a powerful thing.
For reasons that you have no control over. Right? Like you are donating that, and it is a real calling when you do sign that line, right? It's not just a legal contract. It's an emotional contract. It's a promise.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So you meet people like that, and you go, wow, like what got you here? What brought you here? Like I know my story, and I had my twists and turns, and now I'm here, but you don't seem to have gone through my story. So, but how did you get here? And I gotta say, I have all of my many
It's a ton
my
of
veteran
stories.
brothers and sisters who I'm still in communication with, right?
Yeah.
Like one of them was the best man at my wedding 2 years ago.
Nice.
Right? Like that's how far back those relationships that you begin. Again, I was 19. I didn't know these people were going to be in my life at this age.
Or the impact
Right?
they
Or
were
the
going to
impact
have.
that they are going to have and still have.
Yeah.
I was just at his house yesterday helping him, clear out water from his basement because
Oh,
it flooded.
man.
And he called and he was like, hey, like, we're not going to be able to make brunch. And I was like, oh, really?
What's up?
So what time are we going to be over? You know what I mean? But you meet people that, like that. And they have a significant and long-term impact on you. So we can go into military service. I was stationed, went to basic training and AIT at Fort Bragg.
Oh, nice.
Right?
North Carolina.
I would say not Fort Bragg, Fort Jackson. We'll get back to Bragg.
Yeah.
Fort Jackson. So I was a 63 Sierra heavy wheel vehicle mechanic.
Nice.
Getting
your hands dirty.
Yeah, getting my hands dirty, man, getting the elbows, right?
Yep.
But, being able to work outside with just a T-shirt and some coveralls is not a bad idea either.
Sounds all right.
Right? I took that MOS because I felt one of two things. One, I wanted to get a trade, right? I wanted to learn a trade, something that if all else fails, a plan B, if you will, I'd have a skill set. But two, and I think it was more important, was that on my ASVAB, that MOS had the field that I scored the lowest on. Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So I take the ASVAB, get the scores back, and it was like, hey, you got a 110 in this area. And I was like, oh, I heard that's pretty good. It's like, yeah, but you had like 124 everywhere else. And I was like, so what does that mean? What opportunities does that mean? It's like, well, you can go into intelligence, you can go into this, you can go into that. And I went, oh, wow, that sounds like fun. Excuse me. But what's that 110? It's like, well, that's like mechanical engineering and civil and stuff like that. I went, oh, okay.
Sounds like a trade to me.
Huh. Well, which one gives me Army College Fund? Because I was bound and determined to go back to school.
Yep.
Right? Like, I threw away the first opportunity. I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah.
Right? And I knew that had opened more doors, so I knew I was going back. So I said, which one gave me the college fund? And he went, hey, this one here. college fund. But remember, that's when you're 110 on your ASVAB. And I said, oh no, I'm going to do this one.
I'm tracking.
I'm doing this one. Like if I'm going to build discipline, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to approach my weaknesses, not as weaknesses, but where I can grow the most.
Smart.
Right?
Smart.
So you challenge yourself, you push yourself, not knowing why. You just do it now.
Just feels right.
It just felt right at the time. And thankfully, I've had a parents, mom and dad, that always challenged me, that always tried to push me and have me challenge myself, right? Not to go against others, but to build what's best out of myself. So yeah, I did that. Was in Fort Jackson for 5 months. And this was, came in January. And so we went through to the summer solstice. Why do I remember that? Specifically, summer solstice of 94. Well, that was because that was the day that I landed in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Oh, man.
Those were my first duty station.
Yeah, mine too.
Oh, was
mine
it
too,
really?
Actually.
Are you serious?
I was 5-1 Cav out of Wainwright. Shout out to my brothers 5-1. Yep.
Fort Wainwright. Oh my God.
I landed in December. Walked out the airport for the first time. Never, and of course the Army always asks you to in basic training. They're like, here, you can write down your 3. It's called a wish list, right?
List. Yep.
3
out of AIT.
3 in the U.S. and 3 out of the U.S.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure those guys just take those pieces of paper and they're in the back room laughing. No.
Yeah.
And of course they ask me, hey, private, where do you want to go? I'm like, drill sergeant, I'll go anywhere that's not cold, right? No snow.
Right.
And of course, I think they had a great time with that.
Oh yeah,
you're going to Alaska.
Well, we know exactly where to
what
send
the
you.
hell is in Alaska?
Exactly.
There's actually quite a few bases in Alaska, but yeah, anyway, go on.
Yeah. So yeah, you get there, and it is the summer solstice, meaning the longest day of the year.
Yep.
And probably one of the most northern bases that the United States military occupies.
Yep.
So I bring all of that kind of in data to let you know that the kid from New York was not prepared for 24 hours of sunlight, because by the time the van came, picked me up from the airport, brought me to base, and I started to unpack as a kid who's been away from home for probably the second time of his life, right? And this one was real because there was no safety net.
That's right.
Right?
You're in a whole new world.
I'm here, and I'm contracted to be here, and I'm going to be here because I want to be here, so I'm not going to let this fail. So I do all of that, and I'm unpacking and got everything ready and went to bed at 4:30 a.m. After being on the flight from Fort Jackson all day.
Yep.
I wasn't sure what time it was, but I thought everything was eerily quiet. And so I went down to CQ and said, what time is formation? What time is it? I don't have my watch. Can you help me? Like, I need to check in. And I said, yeah, the CO will be in about 30 minutes, and PT is in an hour. I said, but I haven't slept yet.
Right.
That's fine. PT is in an hour.
Great, soldier, let's go.
Awesome. That's day one. Okay. Yeah, let's do this. So, you do what you can.
Sounds about right.
You just say, hey, hurry up and, grab your socks. So, you show up and you check in. And one of my friends who just recently retired was the driver who took me from in processing at Fort Wainwright to 5'9", man shoes. Nice. Man shoes on the lake. That's right. Yep. And when I got there, it was quiet as well, right? But this is 8:30, 9 p.m. And then in the morning, a.m. And it was eerily quiet. And I went, wow, is this a new unit? I don't understand. Where is everyone? You go down to CQ because that's the only place to go when you have a question. Yep. And they said, no, everyone's returning from deployment. Yeah. I went, oh, they're coming back. And in my head, mind you, every experience I have in my head in the military was movies.
Sure.
So I'm imagining these guys with explosions behind them, walking out of the debris, like they just returned from the deployment. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to see these like crazy heroes, and nope, not the case. These are just normal guys, normal guys like you and I. They grab their bags, they're walking in and they're tired. You can tell they're weary and just beaten down, and after a while you hear all the laundry starting up, and people taking shower,
the whole base whirs
and
back
everything
up.
starts winding back up. But I met one of my best friends that day.
Nice.
Anyway, I won't get into that. I won't put him on blast yet. Maybe later.
We'll see.
So that was how my start as a soldier in the military.
Nice.
At Fort Wainwright.
Love it.
Had a wonderful time there.
Yeah.
Spent 3 years. Goodness, maybe it was even longer. But no, 3 years in Alaska. It felt longer.
Sure.
To go through the constant sunlight, in the summer, to the constant darkness in the winter.
It's a crazy. It's a trip.
It is a trip.
Yeah.
It is a trip. Built a family there. Met a great person. And married into a full family.
Nice.
It really is exciting for me. All the kids are coming over to the house this holiday, so
nice.
They're going to be there. So I'm just tickled right now. Lost my train of thought, but anyway, back to that. Spent 3 years there. Met a lot of great people. Learned a lot about myself. Learned a lot about the military. Learned a lot about the community impact that the military has, and the great relationships that are formed because of military presence.
It's a great place to see it too, because Fairbanks is pretty tiny.
It is. It's a small town.
When I was there, it was like 90,000 was the total population.
Yeah, maybe
probably
it's
isn't much bigger there.
It shouldn't be that much larger.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it needs to stay that large, but it needs to stay that small as well. Like in my heart, Fairbanks is a way of life.
Yeah,
it is a complete way of life. So I love that place, and I hope to get back there soon.
Absolutely.
Maybe we could do some caribou hunting.
There you go.
Or
there you go.
I mean, get some black bear.
Sitting up in the hot springs up there is pretty nice too. Chena Hot Springs.
Chena Hot
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I did that a couple of times.
Oh man, I love that place. Oh man. Did some great excursions out there. Hit the field at Fort Greely.
Yep.
Oh man.
We all hit Greely. Man.
Oh yeah, you have to.
Miserable place.
Mm-hmm. It was great. But I gotta say, my best experience at Fort Greely. Again, I'm a mechanic, and I was put on QRF. So whenever there was an incident or attack of the perimeter, QRF we assemble and we reinforce the perimeter wherever there's a potential breach.
Yeah.
But I was also in rescue and recovery as a mechanic.
Yeah.
And so at any hour of the day, I can get the call in that 24-hour rotation to go out and pick up a vehicle that's down. Now, because I'm also the heavy gunner on the squad,
filling a lot of roles.
Yeah, it's a lot of roles there. People wear many hats, but you do what's needed, right? Like, and that's what again is that rent. You show up, you do what's needed. Like, let's not just wring our hands about it. Let's not worry about it. Let's just solve it, and then let's move on to the next challenge because it's around the corner. So, you're doing all of that. But my favorite story. My absolute favorite military story, and I'm sorry I have to give you this.
Man.
Right? It is about, I would say, 2 a.m, and northern lights are out. Like it is pitch black. Blackout conditions because it's field training exercise, so it's February.
It's cold.
It is 82.
Miserably cold.
82 degrees below zero.
Ugh.
82 degrees below zero.
That's ugly.
I am outside fixing a coolant leak on a vehicle barehanded, right? Because you can't get to the parts or hold your tools with these heavy mitts on. So, by the way, soldiers out there, don't do that.
Yes.
Okay, I need to say
don't
this
do
is
this
not
at home.
approved.
Yeah.
Don't use my story as a rule. Okay, I broke the rules, but I had problems to solve because I needed to get this thing back on the road. So I'm doing the work. Grabbing my quarter-inch socket with 10 millimeter, a quarter-inch socket wrench with 10 millimeter socket. I remember that specifically because we were working on the SUS-V at the time. I forget the nomenclature, but I believe it was a N10. Oh goodness, yeah. I'm not gonna belabor that.
Been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a while. But that SUS-V, the power pack was European, right? And so you had many mixed parts of sizes to deal with, right? American construction of the body, the power pack is European, so the entire powertrain was all metric. I remember this because that 10 millimeter socket fell into the engine well, and I only had one in my toolbox.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're hunting that thing, and you're cursing up a storm.
Right.
And again, barehanded, 82 degrees below zero. And so after a while, I just realized the only source of heat was the leaking coolant.
Oh, man.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm bathing my hands. I'm washing my hands in the coolant just to thaw them enough to continue reaching down and to find that socket, to put back on my wrench, to tighten things up. And then I hear, "Hey, soldier," in the only voice that could pronounce that would even have that tone. So, "Hey, soldier." Oh. I was like, "Oh, no. That's Sergeant Major Bradley." You know? And I'm like, oh, he's going to light me up for not having my gloves on. Oh, no. I'm going to be doing push-ups. I know this. I'm going to push the Earth out of orbit this time. You know what I mean? So just turn around, you lock up, and "Oh, what's going on here?" I said, "Oh, Sergeant Major, I'm just trying to get this vehicle back on." He goes, "But your gloves are down by your side." I said, "Yes, Sergeant Major." They are by my side. I need to get into the tight spot to grab my tools. It fell down into the well. It goes, "Oh, seemed to be in there for a while." I said, "Well, I'm trying to keep my hands warm too, Sergeant Major. On antifreeze, it's leaking still. Can I get back to it, Sergeant Major?" Said, "Oh, well, let me bum a smoke, and then I'll let you get back to it." So I said, "Yeah, Sergeant Major, absolutely. Reach in, give him one, and he's on his way, and I'm back to it, you know."
Wow.
But, you get that out, and then a call comes in that there's a vehicle down, and it needed to be recovered because they needed to finish deploying some commo lines. It's like, commo lines at 3 a.m? Who's dropping commo lines at 3 a.m? Oh, the United States military drops commo line at 3 a.m. This should not be a surprise to you.
Yeah.
This is a 24/7 operation.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Yes, absolutely. Still no sleep. Right. Not sleeping.
Yep.
So you go. We drive out. Me and one of my best friends. He's TC. We're driving out to the map. We learned that it is another, one of these SUS-V vehicles, which is a crab. Think of it like those snow trackers that you usually see in Antarctica,
Totally.
but militarized.
Yep.
So it's one of those. And we hear that it's our friend that is overturned in the vehicle.
Oof. That's
and the
dangerous.
vehicle shut down. Mind you, again, 82 degrees below zero.
Right.
It's overturned. You cannot run the engine.
Yep.
And they are at the top of Donley Dome.
Oh, geez. Yeah, they're not in a good spot.
They're not in a good spot.
Yeah.
And the wind has kicked up, and they can't start a fire.
Right.
So you have to figure out how to get there as quickly as possible. It's a blizzard. I'd say a blizzard, but definitely a huge snowstorm.
It's not sunny.
It's not sunny. Like this thing, this is horrible conditions, right? So we're driving, and after a while, TC Wagner is like, "Hey, pull off here, hit this fire trail." So we hit up the fire trail. He's studying the maps, and I'm driving, with blackout lights and NVGs, right? Because now we're off the road, and you got to go dark now.
Yeah.
So we're driving, and meanwhile, like this is my friend up there. So I'm whipping this thing, right? Like I'm the mechanic. I know it's necessary, and we're going to practice like we play. So I'm drifting this vehicle uphill to go get him.
Yeah.
Right? So we get there. And the only reason that we knew exactly where to go was because, and this is where it gets a little bit fun, is I thought that he was going to be stuck at the top of the hill, because that's what the grid coordinates that were given in, and we plotted on the map. Well, at the top of the hill, I saw these lights, and I went, "Ooh, maybe that's a radio tower. Obviously, comma would be there." Let's head that direction. So we get up to there, and it's not like a radio light beacon. No, it's the sus V on its side, and its headlights are turned in a way that they are pointing straight up into the sky.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's stuck in that vehicle, right?
Being
with this
his own
thing
beacon.
on its side, being his own beacon, and they're in the back with a small campfire, using the magazines that they had brought with them in their packs, right? And I'm like, so we pull up, and I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, this thing's on its side, man. What's going on? It's like, we were, running cable, and went over, some muskeg, and it rolled. And I went, okay, no problem. We got all the tow equipment. Like, we'll latch something together. We'll figure that out. But I said, why are you trying to start a fire in here? He goes, because we were freezing.
Right.
And we had to make a choice whether or not to freeze because we have no radio communications, because we are out of communications right now, because we have to deploy the communications, or we could start a fire. And we'll keep it small and keep it regulated. And we have all of the fire extinguishers here, but we have to get out of the wind because there is nothing up here. There is no shelter. You can't dig in. Everything's frozen solid. Like, what do?
Wind's blowing 50 miles an hour.
You got to make choices.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so he's doing that. Again, today, we laugh about this every single time. But at that moment, like, it was, this
scary.
is serious.
Yeah.
Right? This is scary. I'm still, a young man, not really knowing the ways of the world. And these guys are about to freeze to death. And, this is panic time. And so we flip the vehicle. We get the radio working again because they can start the vehicle, charge the batteries, get the commo back up, right? Mm-hmm. Do all those things. And then we get word, hey, tow the vehicle back. Commo has to continue the mission. Said, wait a minute, but they have no vehicle. How are they going to continue the mission? Stand by. Right?
All right, listen here, you guys.
Stand by. Okay. Well, stand by. Hey, come on the vehicle. Let's warm up.
Right.
Mine's running. Right? They get back. They get back to us. Stay at your position. Scout platoon will be there in 15 mics.
Whoa.
Scout platoon will be here.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. They're coming. We're not going to them. They're coming. They're coming uphill. We're at the top.
Yeah.
They're coming uphill to get them. I have a lot of respect for military logistics right now.
They're right.
You know what I mean?
These guys make some real stuff
You just
happen.
have some things moving.
Yeah.
You have some things happening, right? Needless to say, he was fine. Everyone was fine. It's a training mission, but it showed the flexibility of logistics and systems. It showed the flexibility of people, and it showed how when you have a mission and people are determined to accomplish it, anything's possible, right? You collaborate, you get with people, you solve problems, and then you move on to the next challenge. Like, that was all in a 24-hour period.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean?
Life lessons.
That's
man.
a life lesson
Life
right
lessons.
there. So it's a fun story.
Yeah.
I like to share it. But it kind of helped codify how I see the world sometimes, right? Like,
Absolutely.
you have unexpected challenges when you are battle weary and you're tired, but that's when sometimes the greatest moments in your life happen, right? So you can't check out. There is no opportunity to check out. That's part of the rent that we have here, is to check in and be a part of it, right? So that happened. Had a great time. Went back to Greeley several times. Went down to California, NTC, National Training Center, several times. Yeah. Got a fun story in there. It's a little disgusting, so maybe we'll say that for the B-side.
Yeah.
But then after that, went to Fort Bragg. And while I was stationed as part of headquarters company in an infantry battalion up in Alaska, I was stationed with a transportation company at Bragg, and we were dealing with the PLS, palletized loading systems. Primarily, it was a long haul company that would just take gear to and from the airport to coast, right? Load up the C-137s, load up the C-4, right? And then just take them out the ship and go down to Virginia Beach and all of that fun stuff. So, so supporting that, again, that logistics, of how do you coordinate these few drivers and these few trucks to maximize the operational capacity of the force. Like seeing these guys move at all hours of the day, being the mechanic that has to keep these vehicles running all hours of the day, like that showed some challenges that I didn't think that I would have an opportunity to see, right? Again, met some fun people there, great people. One of my favorites, again, Sergeant O'Rear, was in Bragg. Funny thing is, he was the scout leader that came up to the hill.
No way.
I am not
Small
joking.
world.
It was a small world. So when I found out he was there, we became, good buddies. He was still part of Scout, and I think he was in Ranger Bat at that time.
Nice.
But great guy. Love his family. I don't know where he is right now, but blessings to him. Was there for not as long as as someone would typically expect. I was there for, I think, a little over a year. But the reason for that is it was time for me to grow up again, right? It's time for me to go, no, I know who I am now, right? I know my strength, my inner strength. I know where my discipline is. So now it's time to get back to school. Now it's time to remind myself and get back on track to what I don't know, right? Like I was very comfortable in the military. I could have been there forever, loved it. But to a certain extent, I knew that there was a little bit more out there, a different challenge that I was supposed to go face. So I felt like college was the way to get to that door. So I pursued it. I think today things have changed where it's not necessarily the accreditation of jumping through hoops, but it's really a demonstration of talent or a demonstration of a willingness to learn that is going to be much more valuable in the coming future, right? A willing to be flexible and vulnerable in learning different technologies or different languages or different cultures and understandings and practicing law, or looking at the cybersecurity threats, but understanding the trade-offs between privacy, trust, reliability, right? And looking at these things. So I went to school. While I was going to school, went to Everett Community College in this area.
Nice.
Graduated, as quickly as I could. So went through every single quarter, 6 quarters, and I'm out, and I'm now going to UW.
Nice.
Right? Like
Nice.
in and out, maximize it, move on. And then kept going through that. Went to UW. While I was at UW, I was also 9/11 happened, right? 9/11 happened at UW. At that time, I was doing an internship with it was a company that kind of created software for the lumber industry to really optimize the yield from the logs that would come in from the lumber yards, right? So like if you had a cutter or some kind of shaver to make paper, or not paper, but plywood, right? Or 2x4s. Like, how do you position the log properly using computer systems and laser analytics to say we're going to get it the most yield out of this lumber if we turn it at this angle and then cut it this way.
Nice.
Right? To fulfill the orders that we have received. Like, how do you cut the wood? So you had a bunch of really smart people doing all of the crazy maths to figure that out. And I was on the internship where we were going to go into international with that product. 9/11 happened, and I don't know if everybody remembers, but at that time, like, airports were shut down. International trade was affected negatively. To say, wow, you have a national emergency, and you realize that this can affect business. Like, this is not just our safety, but this is our culture, it's our economy. We are a capitalist society. There are pros and cons with that. But to see this grind to a halt without a choice, it has its ramifications, right? Like, if we chose to wind it down and go a different direction, then that's our opportunity. That's our responsibility to make sure that it's done in a good way. But to have that choice taken away was different. And the effect on me was the project I was working on in that international trade dried up. And so being, one of the breadwinners of the family still while in school, have to go to work. Got to go somewhere. So I started working at the Monroe Correctional Complex as a corrections officer.
Oh man,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're getting a lot of different tastings.
So
in
it
here,
was,
man.
yeah. And I gotta say, like, I've met again, looking at the opportunities that like the challenge showed up. You're battle weary, you're tired, going to school, raising a family. My daughter was a toddler at the time, so I would stay at home during the day, raise her, watch her, take her to school, but then go to school at night and then work overnight during graveyard shift.
That's always fun.
Right? And then come back in and then rinse and repeat the process. At the time, my wife would, we would high five in the morning, and she would go to work when I came home.
Right.
It was a 1-car family,
Yep.
right? So, but you grind, right? You push yourself, the experience working at the prison was and is still probably again one of the top 3 things that have changed my views of life. So much so that one of the greatest people in my heart who I met there was the officiant for my wedding 2 years ago.
Nice.
Right? And Kay, love you, sis. I hope everything's great. Happy holidays. But yeah, like those are the types of people that you meet, you come across. And that was, years ago. We won't talk about, how old I was. No, but honestly, like that was, goodness, maybe 15 years ago, and we've been friends since then. I do definitely consider her my sister. We've been through ups and downs together, apart, but we're always close by, always a phone call away. And that experience at the prison, it changed me because it changed my understanding about mental health. I happened to work at the Special Offenders Center, or a Special Offenders Unit at Monroe Correctional Complex. That was just after they merged, so it went from SOC to SOU. And happened to be on graveyard shift, and you deal with the dangerously mentally ill offenders, the ones that are a threat to themselves, threat to the community, but it's psychotics, right? So psychotherapy is there, or psychotherapy treatment is there, medications there. You start to understand a little bit more about the pharmaceutical industry and the opportunities or the benefit that they have to society, right? And helping people help themselves, right? There is definitely some bad behavior within the pharmaceutical industry. Don't get me wrong, right? Because when we think about the opioid epidemic and how it has affected the veteran community and communities at large, like that is very serious breach of trust.
It's huge,
right?
It's a big deal.
It's a breach of trust, right? Like that's really the principle of the matter. If you wanted to profit off of it, I say that's great. Share the wealth, right? But please don't, I would say, again, personally speaking, not on behalf of anything else, but just from my heart, it's really about acknowledging the impact that it has had on the community and looking to make it right. Okay, so I see that as I think a challenge. Again, that trade-off, that conversation needs to be had at large. But my experience at the Special Offenders Unit, you get to see what real mental illness does to people. What just a tweaked brain, can do, and the impact it has on people and their families and their community, and the amount of investment and care that people have around it and trying to help. They are offenders. They did violate the law and they are incarcerated. But there's a bit of a human interaction there, right? Because we're people first, right? Yes, you did something wrong based on our societal rules, but you were a human being. You are a human being, and you will continue to be a human being. So let's just treat them like human beings as well, right? Who just broke the rules. So in that treatment, you try to develop a certain sense of sympathy or a certain sense of empathy, while making sure that you are firm, fair, and consistent with your behavior, right? So you have rules to play by as an officer. Offenders have rules to play by as well. Administrators have rules. Everyone involved has rules because that is part of the law, right? That's our social agreement. That's our contract with each other. So you operate within those boundaries. But that doesn't preclude us from still being people, right? Like just still have the conversation. And I've had many a late night conversations. You can imagine it's hard to stay awake, at graveyards. So you do walk around, and for those inmates that were awake at the time, you would have conversations with them. You start hearing about their backgrounds and where they came from and how, what brought them into the system. And you start to relate to some of the challenges that they faced and realize, wow, like that could have been me. If my brain was a little tweaked, I could have made that decision, right? It's not a far stretch to see myself on the other side of that wall, right? So again, I look back at my parents and I go, wow, thanks. Thanks for keeping me away from that line.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect by any stretch of the means, but at least thank you very much for giving me at least a little bit of sense to stay away from that edge, right? Before falling off into, that type of precipice. So I think that was a fantastic opportunity to be able to work at the prison and see that. Plus, we started a poker group.
Nice.
Right? That was a time when the World Poker Tour or, the World Series of Poker was really big. And it's still big. Like, believe me, like I still have a hope of maybe a dream one day of participating in the final table at the main event.
Absolutely.
But who doesn't, right?
Totally
right.
With
you. But around that time, I think it was Chris Moneymaker won.
Yeah.
Right. We were like, wow. We all kind of got into this. Like, this was fun to watch. Why don't we just start doing poker tournaments? And so we did. And we turned it into like a charitable event.
Nice.
Right? So we'd get together as officers, state employees, not making a lot, but enough. But we were able to find it within ourselves to contribute and get together away from work as people. Again, as people. That we're drawn that way, right? Me less, because, I realize I'm a bit of an introvert and I like to recharge on my own. But it's definitely charging in a certain way to be in the community and being a part of it and relating with folks. So, met a lot of great people, had a lot of fun time. While I was an officer, still going to school, I decided to switch from being an officer to go into the IT department. Because I felt like computers were always a passion of mine. Got my first one when I was, 11 years old in the projects. My mom saved up a ton of money at the time.
Whoa.
And bought me a Tandy 1000 XL computer with dual 5.25-inch floppy drives from Radio Shack.
Wow.
For my birthday. Yes.
That's a piece of history right there.
It was that's a big sentence. And if you unpack it, you'll understand that back then that was a huge commitment based on where we were living.
Absolutely.
Right? That's a significant investment in a dream. Right? Like, I think that's what my mom did. She invested in a dream. So I was very into technology at that time. You even ask my father, he's told me that I broke 6 of his stereos because I was trying to figure out how they worked. Right. And this is as a kid. Yeah. So I think it was always just kind of, I don't know, maybe mechanically inclined or wanting to figure it out. But when she got me that thing, that was another, I think, again, life-changing event, right? It piqued my interest. It was something that was always unfolding for me. And one of my cousins and he would bring his games over. He was older, so he'd have games that he got from school. He'd bring them in, and we'd load them and play them. And then we were just asking questions like, "Hey, how come we can't save our scores on Miss Pac-Man?" Right? Like, that's not cool. Every time we boot up the computer, we got to start all over, and I got to show you what my high score is. And now I got to leave Robotron on for forever until you come over to see that I broke 1,000,000 points.
And that's how it was done.
And that's how it was done, right? Like, there was no saving high scores. You have no idea, where this started, right? You guys are tracking trends and of your play times and your skill levels, and you're getting game points and achievements, based on your rate of play or your skill of play. And back then, we couldn't even save a high score. Dude, it's a double energy.
My original NES was on overnight multiple times.
Yes!
So I'm with you on that 100%.
Right? So we did that, and then we were like, we got to figure this out, man. There's got to be a way. We got to do it. Okay, how do we do it? I don't know. What's this thing load in? MS-DOS. Okay, what does that mean? Right? So again, you see, keep asking the questions, and he would just go back and forth, and then we rewrote the code so that we could save our high scores in basic.
It's amazing.
It's not amazing. It's just like, no, I want to save my high score. I'm tired of solving this problem.
I mean, isn't that where most technology comes from, though?
Yep.
Right? I mean, at its core, we have a problem. We're going to solve it.
But then I want that one too.
Right.
Right? And then that solution creates new opportunities, exposes new problems.
Yeah.
Right?
You turn over one rock,
you're
going to find 10 more.
You're going to find more. Cybersecurity is much the same way. So you see
Probably amplified.
Yes, because the impact is greater. It's not just a personal thing to satisfy me with my high score, right? Now the satisfaction is no one's accounts were hacked. Right? That no one's information was stolen. People's investments are safe. Like that's the risk now. Right? Instead of just notoriety and be like, haha, I beat your score. Like, that's not the game anymore. You know what I mean? The game is a little bigger.
Important. I want to be
still
very
important.
Clear here. Still important.
I'll still take anybody on PUBG right now. That's my game today. It's PUBG. So I'll still
absolutely
take
fantastic.
Right?
We'll definitely get your usernames out there. You're probably going to get a whole bunch of friend requests.
Oh, no. Maybe I shouldn't have done that because I'm not that good. Not that good. I just like to have fun.
That's priceless.
So goodness, where were we? God, I think I got lost.
Sorry, we got talking about video games.
Yeah, we went off. You see, distraction.
That's all right. That happens. What other video games were you playing as a kid? Like, were you console or were you primarily PC?
At the beginning was primarily PC, right? Because that was much.
That's what
more,
you had.
It was much more flexible.
Yeah.
Right. My mom thought, if we're going to spend that much money, we're going to get some good use out of it. It's not just going to be a game system like an Atari. It's going to be a computer where you can learn about computing.
Right. Now, are you still PC Master Race, or do you play around with consoles a little bit now?
No, I do play around with consoles. Yeah. I play on consoles more, but I use PCs more.
Makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
Like in this industry, I can't necessarily help defend the cyberspace on a console.
Right.
Like, that doesn't happen except maybe in PUBG. But no, I'm just kidding.
I'm curious. What do you think the exact moment was, if you can think of one, where you knew technology and the internet was going to change the way that we do life?
Oh, immediately. Absolutely immediately.
So like you plug it in, you flip the switch, and it's like, this is it.
Yeah. No, and it's weird. The first time I touched a computer, I think it was a TRS-80 when I was in Mr. Oswald's class. I believe it was 5th grade. Wow. Like recall. Like I'm getting total recall right now. And I happened to be in a classroom where we were using the turtle to draw lines. But there was no mouse interface. You had to tell the turtle left 3, right 4, right? And you would set these instructions in order and tell it to draw a line or put the pen down and move and then lift the pen up and move. So you would just have this turtle, this little triangle, right icon on the screen. And by telling it to start drawing by putting the pen down and moving, and then stop drawing by lifting the pen up and moving, you would create shapes. But you could not tell the turtle to just magically move from point A to point B. You had to know the distance. So you started to pick up on geometry very quickly, right? Like to build a square, all the sides are the same. So, your left, right, up, down are going to be the same value. But to make a pentagram, or to make a rhombus, or to make a different shapes, an octagon, like how many degrees do you turn the turtle left and right, counterclockwise or clockwise? And so you do the math really quickly. And I went, this is all the maths.
Yeah.
Right? You go, like, as a kid, I'm like, this is all the maths right here. It's all here. You can do it all with this thing. Like, even as a kid, I didn't know what all meant.
Right.
I had no concept of all, but back then, all the things for me could be done with the computer. I disagree with that now, naivete. But, right now, so much is done with computing that I think we also have to bring back in that human aspect, right? Again, what are we really trying to solve? It's not just to build a better mousetrap, but to build a mousetrap that everyone's happy with. It's easy to use. It's simplified. But in the back end, it is the most protective beast. It is your fan. It is your friend. And it's going to protect you from your own harm. You know what I mean? Sometimes self-inflicted even. So like that to me is the spirit of cybersecurity. You know, it's a burgeoning industry. And, you know, as we think about, you know, various threats, whether or not it's individuals or hacker groups or nation states, you know, advanced persistent threats are a thing. They are growing. You know, the industry is willing to meet the challenge, right? Like you have like-minded people who are not gonna sleep, you know, we're not gonna grow tired because this is what matters to us as professionals, is to make sure that the community, that the people out there remain safe, right? That their interests are protected. And I've just been fortunate to land in this area that just aligns with my priorities and my principles. And I mean, a lot of more great people and having fun doing it too. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we dive a little bit deeper into the current state of cybersecurity and kind of where we're at with that, we were talking offline about one of your core beliefs and your ideologies about helping others who struggle to help themselves.
Yeah.
And I was curious because obviously that sounds like a theme that's been with you for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you believe that ideology is what brought you into cybersecurity specifically? Or was there another influence or motivation that brought you here?
Into cybersecurity, I it would be really difficult at this point to just boil it down to something as simple as that or as straightforward as that, because, you know, it's complex. I've ricocheted a bunch of, you know, off of so many different people that I just ended up here, right? Like one missed bounce and I'm not here. So it's hard to say that. But definitely it has drawn me here, right? It's like it's an attraction of helping people who struggle to help themselves. I think about the small business. I think about the nonprofits. I think about the vulnerable out there that they don't have the resources or the utility or maybe even the understanding that there is information or assistance available that can benefit them, right? Whether or not it's for free or if it's low cost or even at market cost, like maybe there are different tools or capabilities or resources or services out there that can help us, again, just pay our rent, right? Like sometimes we struggle to pay rent literally and figuratively, right? And how do I give back when I don't have enough? Right? Like that's a challenge. It's in a lot of people's hearts to give back, but they just don't have the utility to do so. I think some of us are fortunate to do so, so we do willingly. And the balance is that trade-off again. It's what do you feel comfortable in doing, but don't hold yourself back, right? Like be fearless with that gift. And sometimes the gift is monetary. Sometimes the gift is time, right? And attention. And maybe you can bring a skill or a function to an area that is sorely needing that service, sorely needing that energy, right? And I like to kind of normalize that gifting as energy, whether or not it's monetary or time, temporal, or just focus. It's energy that you're giving back because you've been benefit to receiving it without even knowing it, right? So overall, yeah, definitely one of those kind of guiding lights, I guess, is to try to help, you know, people who struggle to help themselves, and also to help people who struggle to help others, right? So I think about it from that perspective in the nonprofit sector, to say with our nonprofit. You know, maybe a small plug for Nine Line, but the board there, we're not really focused on just helping individuals. We really think about it as okay. So I'll give you a different analogy, and it's a great one that I got from a coworker at Salesforce. He shared a story where he had a new hire, and that person that he recently hired was given an award, a commendation for just great collaboration, great partnership. But the story he told was, when I hire someone, like, hopefully, if I'm a baker and my expectation is that one day you'll cook 10 loaves of bread a day, right? Like, let's just throw that number out there, 10 loaves of bread. You're not going to start at 10 loaves of bread on day one, right? You may not even know how to make bread, but I'm going to show you how to make bread. We're going to get you to the point where I'll show you how to make 5 loaves a day. And then I'm going to set you free to go figure out how to get it to 10, right? But that's not where we stop, right? Where we stop is, now I'm going to show you how to show other people how to make 10 loaves of bread.
I love that.
And then I want to show you how to show them how to teach other people how to make 10 loaves of bread. Now, am I going to have all those skills of all of those, instructions of how to teach you, how to build you? No, I'm not going to know. So it's going to be a journey. We're going to figure it out together. But in the end, that's my goal, right? Like, we need to have that communication in the beginning, that I want to help build you to do the things that you want to do if you wish to show others how to bake 10 loaves of bread a day, right? So whatever your loaf is, I just want to put myself in a position or connect you with other people who can get you to that point where you can fulfill your dream. So our nonprofit is really about bringing other organizations together to have a much more comprehensive conversation when it comes to veterans, right, and veteran care after service. And we really try to index on the homeless population, right, because we see that as, for whatever the reason is, right, wherever they came from, whatever their trajectory, whatever the ricochets that happened in their life, that's where they are. So we're going to meet them there, right, and help them, find their happiness. That's also under the assumption that they are not happy in their current state, right? So that's an assumption we make, and we check ourselves on that too. Maybe they are happy where they are, but are they fruitful? Are they in the space where they can pay their rent, right? And maybe they're not. Maybe they don't realize that that's an opportunity out there, right? Again, mental health illness, right? Mental health issues, maybe lack of awareness, lack of exposure to the rest of the world, and lack of preparation in understanding that you are valuable because of what you can contribute, not because of what you have accomplished, right? Like, your power is in front of you, not behind you. So if you can take that message to those who struggle to understand their purpose, and therefore they suffer from depression, and therefore they're not plugged in, and they withdraw, and you can see, like, that might be a light, right, that they can aim for. That might be their true north. And again, everyone has their own purpose. Everyone has their own energy that they can bring. And so I like to think about it as just helping people find their energy source, and go plug in. You know what I mean? And I think that's where they get charged. That's when you can find people that lift themselves out of whatever situation they're in, whether or not it's poverty, addiction, right? Just reckless behavior. You can find that solution there. And the other thing that I don't think we got to talk about this, because this is really much more recent in my I guess my thinking, right? When I'm out having a cigar, right, and going on a walk, I think about it. I'm like, well, that's to me is such a fulfilling and satisfying return on that investment, right? Like, it feels really good to plug in and help people. Why is it that we don't just do that so much more? Like, it's confusion, right? Like, this should be so easy, but it's so hard, right? to get people to participate. And I often think about it, again, hearkening back to my various experiences growing up, being an immigrant, or being perceived as an immigrant, being an African American in New York, in the poverty-stricken parts of Brownsville, in Brooklyn, right, like, and then going to school in classes with kids of echelons that were or statuses higher than mine, and looking at their way of life, and then going to school and flunking out, and then going into the military and seeing people whose paths were different, but we're here now and we're a unit. And this is your unit, and you will live and die by this unit, and you have promised us this, but more importantly, we've promised you this, that we got your back, right? You bring all these experiences together, and then you start to unpack that. You go to school, and you're challenged, and you go to work at the prison, and then you go to work at Microsoft, and you go to work at Salesforce, and you cross paths with people in the industry, and then you go on vacation, you go to Mexico, and you go to Italy. Oh my goodness, that was such a fantastic honeymoon, by the way. Okay? But you go and meet the people from so many different places, and you realize that for the most part, we are all focused on these kind of imaginary lines, right? Like these senses of division, these senses of I'm special and unique because I'm different in this way, right? And I think we need to change the dynamic. We need to change the conversation a bit when it comes to these kind of perceived lines. I think it's much more important to realize that these are just books you haven't read in a way, right? Like these differences between people are just things that you just don't know. And it's going to be awesome to learn it, to just go dig in, find out about it, get involved with people who are different from you in every way. You know what I mean? Based on, whether or not it's political or social class or gender or gender fluidity or religious beliefs. Like, it's okay. Everyone has a place, right? And everything has a place. But don't be confined by that place, right? Like, just allow yourself to let that goodness come in. And some bad will follow too. But then that'll help kind of sharpen your focus on where that good is, right? To know that not everything is good. Right, that's the balance. You know what I mean?
That's
like
what everything looking for.
Yeah, everyone
just wants to be
good.
happy all the time.
You just want to be happy.
It's not how that works.
But sometimes you have to accept the bad, right? When we think about different mental illnesses, we can think about them. I think we should start talking about it as far as a spectrum, right? Of conditions, not just illnesses, but these are just states of being. If you have ADHD, right, you're going to behave differently in the world than others. But hopefully, through counseling, through medication, through conversation, you can start to understand your difference and then help manage that, right? Maybe as someone who is not within that boundary of the spectrum, right? You can now start having sympathy and empathy for those who are showing signs of that spectrum. But you'll never get there if you don't understand it, if you don't bring it in, if you don't open yourselves up and be vulnerable, right, to that new information, to that new experience. So I think it's really important for us to look more at the human side of things. And that will almost help prioritize what's important and what are the things that we should go do more of. So I will say this because, the internet is growing. I'll probably be in cybersecurity for the rest of my career because I'm very passionate about, protecting people's rights and protecting people's, personal space, industries as well. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's also the opportunity to talk about what do we not understand clearly yet. Right, about personal space and personal freedom. What do we not understand yet about these lines that we've drawn up between each other? What do we not understand yet about where we need to learn, where we need to grow, so that we can probably just, pay our rent and make sure that the world is just a safer and better place for people to grow. Right.
It's super interesting. And, obviously in the last couple of decades, as technology really starts to fire up in a very, very fast way, I mean, things have, you look at even the past 10 years, things have moved so stupid quickly.
Goodness.
And there's a lot of massive industries and massive businesses that have not put focus and attention into cybersecurity, and we see that.
Yeah.
Right? We see that when we go look at the news, and there's been
Yeah.
a 7 million, person breach, and your credit card and your social is now out there. So let's talk about the current state. We're in the the end of 2019, going into 2020. What does cybersecurity look like right now?
Wow, that's
a big question.
That's a huge question. Yeah, so it's tough, right? In as well as defending the state of the world today, we have to think ahead, right? When we think about it, persistent threats. The word persistent is used on purpose, right? Like the threats will continue to evolve, they will continue to mature, and the attackers will get better, right? It's kind of the condition of growth and learning, right? Like they are learning how to attack in much more sophisticated ways, and therefore, the defenders need to get better, right? And learn and become much more sophisticated in the defense mechanisms in place. The challenge comes in when you have so many competing priorities, right? Of, God, what do we do first? Do we do this, A, or do we do this, B, or C, D? The list can go on. But what do we do first? Which one is most important? And I would say, goodness, from 10 years ago to today, really the big thing was about patching. Right? Like just making sure that you installed all of the updates that came from your software providers, from your hardware providers. Make sure you have the right firmware installed, right? Like if you do the basics, you'll do most things right, right? But more and more, when we think about IoT, the Internet of Things, and you have devices like ATMs and gas station kiosks and, pay machines at your local coffee shop, all of these things are using bits of your information, right? And so when you have the ability to amass all of this information for the right reasons, again, Starbucks is not trying to just save your stuff just for nefarious reasons, right? Neither is any other coffee company. Neither is any, big box store, right? Like their goal, they have specific goals. And in order to make that, they realize that trust is important. But sometimes priorities, are taken. Trade-offs are taken, I should say, because of certain priorities. And therefore, businesses were not able to focus on protecting, customer data, on making sure that every bit of data is accounted for, right? Like knowing when information is received as well as information is shared, right? Tracking that type of behavior. Looking at machine learning and artificial intelligence to come up with predictive models of attacks, right? Like what is the most likely attack pattern? And that's looking at the future based on data that was gathered from the past, or looking at the past and going, all right, based on all of these, I'll call it signals, right? Which ones are okay? Which ones are certainly not okay? And then what do the rest mean? Right? Like to really normalize it, like really that's all it is. It's a game of, okay, what do we know that's safe? Right? Like I know when someone knocks on my door and I look at the peephole, I know faces, and that's a safe face, that's a safe face, that's a safe face. And then there are certain people that not a safe face. If Jeffrey Dahmer was on my doorstep, not a guy I'm letting in. Right? Like I know that's not a safe face. But then everyone else, I don't know, is that a safe face? Right? So looking at those patterns and then, using some smart people, right? Some good computer science and great engineering solutions. We try to build that kind of that detection profile that says, this looks like it could be good behavior. Just check it out. Help us confirm. You see that in the, hey, it looks like you logged in.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
From this machine. Or your bank is calling you and saying, hey, it looks like you spent money while you were, traveling in Canada. Is that you? That's, hey, that's checking it out and making sure, hey, it looks like it's probably okay because you've been to Canada before, but we just want to make sure. Is that you? It's also looking at the signals for potentially bad behavior and going, hey, we put a block on your card because you have not gone, you have not left the country ever, right? And you're going to someplace that has high cybercrime. We've seen credit card transactions being generated from this location that has unusually high cybercrime. So we're going to put a stop on the transaction and block your card because more than likely your information was stolen and is being used, right?
Which happens.
It
all
happens.
The time.
And with billions and billions of transactions happening every day, you're not going to have enough people power to look through every single one and go, yeah, that's probably good. That's probably good. That's oh, no, check up on that. Like, right, like that doesn't happen. So you need machines to do that work for you. But you need machines and to build algorithms that those machines use to apply to the data to really surface those signals. That detection mechanism has to improve. Because again, the attack patterns are improving. So you have to be able to look at those attack patterns, look back and go, yep, definitely bad. Okay, now we found out, right? You look at the attack and you go, ooh, that was a good one. Nice move. I see what you did.
Right.
But now I see what you did. Right? And you can address it that way. But then you have to look at the other information, the other noise coming in and go, is there anything bad going on in there? Right? Like let's do some pattern recognition. Let's look at that. Let's try to stitch things together and see if there is a trend that happens, right? Like does transaction A always happen before transaction B, right? And you look at these things in comparison and try to develop some type of heuristic to say, yeah, that's probably bad. We should look into that. Let's prioritize that work in the cybersecurity field, right? To see if there's a pattern there. So that's the kind of stuff that we're doing. So again, the problems are the same. The tools and mechanisms have to advance because we're just trying to look at behavior, right?
Well, and it's really interesting that you bring up specifically behavior because there's a big conversation going around right now about deepfakes and the ability to manipulate what you're perceiving as the behavior or what you hear, what you see.
Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, it's always evolving.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So you have deepfakes, man. Like I remember deepfakes being like a thing that came into my mind, probably watching a movie or something. Like that feels right. And then seeing like the younger version of an actor pasted onto their face when they're older. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like Captain America
Yes.
thing, right? Where they, like that's essentially deepfake technology, right? And that was used for entertainment. But it didn't start with the Avengers or Captain America. Great shout out to Marvel. I love you guys. But it didn't start there. That concept was science fiction,
Right.
right? So we're just seeing that being applied in other ways. Like it went to the medical industry with plastic surgery. Like we're doing facelifts now, face off. Right? Like
right.
You know what I mean? So the deepfake like idea is just the computer or the technology implementation of what if I look different? Right? Or now we can make it we've turned into an entertainment meme, right? So now Nicolas Cage is again dominating the internet, right?
It's a really good example.
When he's the entire cast of Little Women, like
Yes.
it makes me laugh.
That was really funny.
You know what I mean? But you do these fun things, but it pushes the envelope because now you have people who are maybe have a little bit of seditious and nefarious ideas that going, I wonder if I can change people's minds. I wonder if I can affect outcomes of voting,
Right.
of politics. Can I shift the agenda into my direction, right? And that is when technology kind of takes a turn on its head. And I think we have to be more responsible with it. I think we have to not just be much more responsible, but as defenders, we have to think about it more of the what is possible, what is the science fiction, and have these almost science fair type experiments where we can detect that and defend against it, right? So like, what if this deep fake made it into the news and this propaganda was actually spread out on Twitter or out on TikTok or out on Facebook or whatever huge social media platform? What if this thing now became fact?
Real.
It became real and
Right.
metastasized itself into reality, right? How do we then trust the platform? How do we trust each other, right? Again, that's why deepfakes feel wrong. It's not the entertainment aspect. It's that, man, I don't know what to trust anymore. And now my order in my universe is not or as in order as possible. It's a little bit more chaotic, and that feels uncomfortable, right? And I talk with my daughter, about that. And then you look at the studies that come out. And the younger generation, that's just their life.
That's all they've ever known.
That's all they've ever known is these, this deepfake type mentality of how can I make the world look a little bit different, right?
With it, especially because when you mention entertainment, the first thing I'm thinking about is AR, right? Yep. Especially when it comes to Snapchat and
absolutely
overlays.
Yeah, the filters and all that stuff.
Oh my gosh, it's blowing up right now. Yeah.
It's the same concept of deepfakes, but now it's we see it as the political twist on the technology, on the capability of just doing an overlay, right? With facial tracking and recognition. And then how do I make sure that the ears are in the right place? You know what I mean? Yep. So we look at that and we say, wow, that's really good. That's really, really good. But then you start to add, voice technologies to that, right? Like if I can mimic the voice, then I can change the tone of the speaker. And then I can record the script and change the mouth so that this person could be seen back in whatever time at whatever event. And then I can change the dialogue, right? And then promote that as the truth, where the time and space, the date and time happened. That person was actually there. So on the surface, it seems like something I should trust. I should believe in. Wow, it's, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and that's a video. So, right? Like, it should make sense that that's real. But the technology has been, and as all technology, was subjugated to, different motives and used for nefarious purposes. And therefore, you have these deep fakes that are sapping the trust of the viewers. And that's where the danger is. So, fun to say that, right around the same time that deepfakes are coming out, scientists around the world are working on algorithms to detect deepfakes, right? Like, again, defenders, right? Are out there going, wow, that's a lie. We need to be able to spot the lie.
Yeah.
That's the solution. Yeah. How do we do it? Don't know. Haven't had this problem before. Right?
I've never seen the whole cast of Full House be Ron Swanson. Did you see that one? That one was so funny.
Yeah. But I love Ron Swanson, Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I love that show.
But no, seriously, like, we have the conversation, here, but in the real world, this is really affecting people. Yeah. Right? It's changing their minds with untruth.
Well, and we always think about, when it comes to cybersecurity fraud or people who have nefarious intention, we're usually thinking about somebody who's trying to get either our first-party data, name, phone number, address, email, credit card information,
for
social.
Identity theft.
They want identity, right? Yep. And that's generally what we think about. But if you could give it a percentage, because obviously there's a lot of different nefarious categories out there of why somebody would want to be involved.
It's
right?
Motive.
I mean, especially lately, and I don't want to point out Russia, but I mean, there's a lot of different nation states out there that are using cybersecurity warfare as their new war. And they're really saying, you know what? We don't need to put troops on the ground anymore. I don't need to attack you with a gun.
That's true.
I have a computer, right? If you, from an industry perspective, what do you think that kind of role is playing? What kind of conversations are happening at that level?
Oh, that level. Fair to say that as much as I would assume to know, I probably do not know 10 times as much.
Sure.
Right? So there's probably a lot more information and context out there that I don't have. But fair to say at this point is that attacks are always motive-based. Right, whether or not it is desire or fear based, whether or not they feel like there's an opportunity to be captured, or a danger to be averted, right? And so again, if I were to look at my experience at the prison and learn how to sympathize or empathize with the offender, then I can look at motive, right? I can try to understand why they committed that. And then maybe hope to solve the root cause. So Taking that into cybersecurity, you'll have individuals who hack. For the most part, it's hobby hackers, right? Sometimes there are immediate gains from that, like, hey, I can pad my bank account, right? Like I can steal some crypto or do something like that, and it helps them in the near term. You might have social groups who have much more of an agenda with call it a consolidated voice, something that they want to be heard, or to attack a system of common understanding, if you will, that they disagree with, right? I mean, you can think of some of the hacktivists out there. Whether or not I agree with that agenda, I think it's important to, again, more important to maintain trust and integrity, right? So to a certain extent, it feels like cheating, right? Like you're playing a different game than everyone else is, and therefore we can't have the right conversation because now we don't trust the conversation base to begin with. So I feel like that's where that gets eroded. But you can move on from kind of hacktivist groups to corporate espionage or nation state attacks, where you have governments or institutions within society that participate in these kind of advanced and persistent attacks, advanced and persistent threats, where the agenda is much longer, right, than you and I can really reasonably see, can really reasonably detect. Like this agenda might span generations. Like the idea, like because you have to like the cybersecurity field is just a war front.
Yep.
Right? Like the battle has always been there. Right? This is just a new field of battle. So if we think about nation states doing that and being able to use technology to affect, not just each other's, call it cyber information and cyber privacy, cyber security, but to infect industry like industrialization, like power grids, telephone and communications. Like you start affecting these things, then you start to erode the trust that people have in their governing body, that people have in their corporations, right? So by attacking a company, you can affect people's livelihoods, right? And then if they don't trust that institution to defend that information, if that information is easily hacked, then it really erodes the trust in the system. So the system has to be there on behalf of the customers, on behalf of the community and society, to protect that information, in order to kind of keep the wheels going, right? Like keep the wheels lubricated to that extent. So when we have these nation states that participate in these kind of activities, we have to adopt a different mindset in order to defend against that, because you don't just want to win the battle and lose the war, right? If you're kind of fighting the good fight, you want to make sure that you win the war, knowing that you might have to have some bumps and bruises along the way, right? Like we're gonna learn, we're gonna study more, we're gonna work hard, and that's to all of the the up and coming cybersecurity professionals out there, right? Like this is it can be a career choice. You'll learn a lot, not just about technology, but about just society and industry, about how people communicate, how people trade, how people share, how people protect, right? And I think that the pace of change, call it, let's think about it in a different way. The pace of change within the industry from 10 years ago to today will be dwarfed by the pace of change from today to 10 years from now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
The pace
No question.
The pace of change is increasing at such a staggering rate that it creates additional complexity in defending against the good, right? And so I think that's where we're going to see a lot of increased challenges. I think that's why like cloud computing is so important, right? And why I think Salesforce is awesome, by the way. um, um, not even a small plug, but this is just like my honest belief is that cloud computing will help with that defense in the sense that by looking at a trusted partner to do that work for you and know that that partner is fully committed for doing that work and will bring in the right talent, the best talent available to help fight that fight, like that's a lot of work that you don't have to do. Right? Right. Like I think it's everyone's interest to do so, but sometimes we just don't have the resources or the utility to get it done. And so, like using Salesforce as an example, cloud service providers, and there are others, right? Alibaba, Microsoft, AWS with Azure, or AWS with Amazon. Like you have all of these companies that are putting together great capabilities and technologies, and those are also being attacked, right, at a foundational level. Because again, it seems like a huge pot of gold. If I can get inside of there, then I have all the things, right? Right? Like I don't have to come in from the outside through someone else's information channel. I can just go to the safe, right? And that's that way you have to build out perimeters.
It's like a digital Ocean's 11.
Yes, yes. Maybe that is Ocean's 14. We'll give Hollywood an idea. Just 5% of the proceeds to our nonprofits.
That's all we need.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But no, like it again. It's just the next battlefront.
Yeah.
So, fortune favored me to be here. You grew up in the streets of New York during the crack 80s, right? You go to the military where you have the potential to lose your life. You go work at a prison where you've dealt with people who have, committed capital acts. You go into the technology industry, which has, global impact and reach. And then you piece it all together and you go, whoa, global reach. That's a lot of people out there. Like that's all the people out there.
That's all of them.
Right?
It's all of them.
And if you have the ability to defend all of them, right? Especially from themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Like I fat fingered a couple of things and lost some files, right? I'm sure we've all deleted things accidentally.
Yep.
Right? But if we can help defend that and protect it, yourself from your own behavior as well as those from the behavior of others, I think that's awesome. Right? And I think that's the platform that the internet should be. That's the platform that the internet needs to be. Because I think we have greater challenges as human beings ahead of us than we did behind us. I think we have greater challenges when we think about, resources on this planet, and we think about, the potentiality of climate change and how it could impact people and potential mass migrations. But we also thinking about energy, and food, and right, like all of these things are still real problems.
Yeah.
Right, they're still here. They haven't gone anywhere. Those are still challenges that we face. And when we think about disease, right, and we think about, yes, we combat disease, and thereby extend life for people. Feels awesome. The trade-off is people live longer and therefore consume more resources on the planet. So we have to, right? Like, not that that's a bad thing, but I think that's the challenge ahead of us.
It's pros and cons.
It's the pros and cons, right? We solved the problem with disease, and now we have a different problem of longevity.
Right.
Right? And it's a great problem to have, but it's still something that we have to face.
So it's very interesting that we talk about the speed in which things are changing. Yep. So we've got all these people who technology is still very new to, even the people who are in the younger generation that, they were born with the internet being a thing.
Yep.
I wasn't born with the internet being a thing. I don't think you were either.
Not at all.
So now we've got this evolution. We have these generations that are being like, hey, technology affects us in these different ways, but it's about to affect us in a lot of different ways. What should the general public, the consumer, be thinking in this space? Because a lot of them, I think, are aloof, and they're just like, I trust these guys to take care of me, and then they get a a letter in the mail that says, oh, by the way, your social security card and credit card information has been compromised, and we're going to give you 6 months of credit watching, or whatever it might be, right? So, but I mean, there are a lot of things that I think people at the ground level can do, and we were talking about one right before we jumped on the show, but as a cybersecurity expert, I'm just curious to give let's do a cybersecurity tip of the day.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, you want a cheat sheet? Okay.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. I'll do my best. And it's something that, because, at Salesforce, I work with the kind of small and medium acquisitions as they come in, and try to help drive the program to erase some technical debt, right, that has been accumulating from the past, and some, call it, process debt, and just kind of getting people aware of some of the challenges that are being faced, on a broad stage of Salesforce, and to really think about, how we can all do better together. So there are some lessons learned from during that journey of onboarding. So we have, robust dialogues, very technical, where we can talk about, okay, I don't want to bore the audience, right? But it'll go back into, a lot of my technical training in the back, in the past. But really, we try to just make the software, the solutions, the services much more resilient, and safe to operate in and on. And I think top of mind, if I were to say, let's say I got a cold call from my dad, who was like, "Hey, I got a computer. What should I do?" Right?
I think everyone's received or given that call.
If you've been in the industry and not had that call, you need to question yourself, and you need to challenge yourself to find at least 5 people to have that conversation with, because it is mind-numbing. But no, it happens. It happens. It really, really happens. Even today, we're about to flip into 2020, right? 2020, and we, I'm still feeling these conversations of, well, how do I open this file? How do I open up this attachment? No, and these are real.
It's real conversations.
Yeah, these are real conversations. This is not like to poke fun at people, right?
Like, it's back to human behavior.
It's just human behavior. They haven't had the opportunity to do it, right? So just be there. They're being vulnerable in that time to say, I don't know something. That's a hurdle for a lot of people to admit that weakness, if you will, right? Like, some people would perceive that as a weakness. I see that as ultimate strength to go, dude, I don't know. Tell me what I need to do. I need to learn, right? Like, that is a fantastic place to be in, and to be that facilitator. Oh my goodness, like that, I'm honored every single time it happens. So anyway, first things first. Update your machine. I'll just cut to that chase, because that's important.
So those Windows updates, we really should be.
Please do that. Please do that. And if you're on Android, do the same. If you're on the Apple iOS ecosystem, do the same. Find it. Find those help pages and learn how to update your software and your operating systems. And it's not all just one button, that you push and then everything's done. Sometimes there are many different tools that you have to go and update individually. Most times, I think nowadays, I'd say it's fair to say that most of the software is on this kind of regular automated update cycle, where, like, usually while you should be asleep, it's going into the background and updating, right? Patching your software updates. If you see those reminders come up for your updates, accept them. Right, like, there should be from a trusted source, and make those, install those patches, and then every once in a while, I'm in the field, so I probably do mine twice a day, but I make sure everything is patched and up to date twice a day. That's probably excessive for most people, right?
Sure.
But it's not out of paranoia; it's just out of routine now, right? Like, that's where I am.
Which, at your level, twice a day sounds appropriate.
There's rigor right around it, because I have access to sensitive information, sensitive systems. So I make sure that I have the latest and greatest updates and defense in place before I actually walk in. We call that secure origination. Yeah. So making sure that the device that I'm using to access these internal systems is secure in and of itself. Right. So I don't invite the bad guys in with me.
Right.
Right. Challenge and password. right?
Yep.
That's the thing that we have in the military,
Yeah.
right? You say, hey, who's there? This is blah, blah, blah from this unit.
Yeah.
And then you get the call sign. That's
Yeah.
the challenge.
Yeah.
And you better come back. Right? You better know what that means.
It gets
And you
real
better have the
dangerous.
real response.
Right.
Because it gets dangerous after that point.
Yeah.
Right? So in the cybersecurity field, like we are not going to reach out with electrons and threaten people, right? But we have things called multi-factor authentication. So you use a different type of identification to say, this is me using my application to get to my stuff. So turn it on. We have enable face touch or face ID now with iPhones. iOS came out with that. I believe it's on several platforms already. You have things like, goodness, I'm trying not to use the technical words.
Sure.
But you have things like password vaults where you only need to remember one password.
Yeah.
And then that site that remembers your all of your other passwords, you authorize that site to interact with your web browser, right? So I use one. I have one password, and I authenticate that for all of my personal websites, like my banking, my travel sites, my social media sites, whatever. But I use that to access that information or to authenticate myself one time. Right. So I only have one password to remember. So now I don't care what the password to my Facebook is.
Right.
I really don't.
It could be 25 characters long.
It could be 300 characters
It should
long.
be.
I don't care. I just need to remember the one, and then that thing handles it for me.
That's smart.
Now, the one password I remember is very complicated. I'm talking about, Camelback with uppercase, lowercase. It has symbols in there. It has spaces in there. Like the space bar is a character. You have to remember sometimes that the space bar is a character.
Right.
It goes back to the basics, ASCII programming, right? It is a character in there. So you put that in there. You just have to find the most complicated password that absolutely no one's going to remember or know. From you,
or be able to figure out. I mean,
out.
There's a lot of hackers that use programs
Yes.
to be able to test passwords.
Password 1 2 3 4.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I got you. If that's your password, I'm going to get you. Okay,
About 10 seconds in, you're
so
done.
don't do that. But to do different things like Seahawks Super Bowl 2020. Believe me, we're trying that already. We're poking.
Yeah.
Because if you think we're not poking,
Yeah.
the bad guys are poking. Like they are looking at where you live to try to figure out different passwords. And they don't need to manually enter it. They just need to use their programs to run through the algorithms that will just build the passwords and give it a try.
Yeah.
Right? And then they use that for all of the email accounts that they've harvested off the internet and just give it a try. Maybe it'll miss. Maybe it'll work. And the ones that do work, then they go, oh, okay, that one works. I'll just leave it here for now.
Yep.
I won't try it yet. I won't use that yet. I'll just wait. Because it's nothing in there today, right? So you move forward 10 years from now, you're a struggling student, and now you're a reasonably successful professional, and you're like, hey, look, I got, $5,000 saved up.
Right.
Right? And it's the holidays. Man, I'm gonna go buy some gifts. This is awesome. And then you realize, oh man, I haven't changed my password ever. And someone has known my password for years. Right? Like they didn't take your money then because there was none to take. Right? Motive. But now that you've saved up money, but you've never changed your password and the access to your stuff has never changed. You've never changed the locks on your doors. Right? Those old people have the key. So they can just walk right in as you. Computers have no way of understanding whether or not that's you except through that password. So you need to make sure that that password changes. That's why we talk about password rotation. So patch your stuff, right? Make the complex passwords and change them frequently. And to help you with that, use the tool to handle all of those password changes,
It sounds a lot easier than
It sounds simple.
it does.
But there's a lot of stuff in the background that handles the complexities.
Right,
you see
right,
what I mean? So we have to talk about integration. Like this app needs access to your browser and access to the social media site of your choice to say you need to work with this browser version on this site to enter passwords. And you need to be okay with me sending this information from this location instead of from the login location. Right? Like there's a lot of communication that has to happen in the background to make sure that only the right people get access to the right information at the right time. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So instead of somebody going, hey, look, I've had this password that I found on this hard drive that I picked up at the local parts store. You know what I mean? Like an old password that's on some hard drive, and they just happened to get it, and they tried it out, and oh my god, I got into that. Oh my lord, what's
Admin was
in
the
here?
password?
Right? Yeah. So that's another fun thing.
Right.
If you are into buying your own gear, I have my own router at home.
Yep.
Because that's just who I am. You get that gear. And the first thing I did was before I even plugged anything into it, I turned it on and I changed the admin password.
Yep.
Why? Because I just don't want anyone else to be able to change the admin to get in as an admin, right? And if you have these devices out there, there are, again, advanced persistent threats. 20 years ago, it wasn't out there as a danger. But now you have, people who are sniffing the internet for these endpoints that are constantly checking. Hey, is this your default password? Is this the admin password? Usually the admin passwords are in clear text on the internet.
Right.
Because the companies are providing that to help you with your own equipment.
To make it easy.
To make it easy for you. But that information is also available to the bad guys.
Look at that.
Right? So change it, make it your own, make it personal, and that way the bad guys don't have the password to your own equipment. So that's why, again, important to have your own password, make it very complex, and then change it, rotate it frequently. Again, very aggressive. I do mine every 70 days.
Yeah.
It feels aggressive,
right. Yeah.
But it's an old habit that started way back when I was in IT. And then I figured, I'm not going to just lower the bar to make it easier. Like if it was the right thing to do, it's probably the right thing to do. I would say standards have matured, whether or not they've gone, much more stringent or a little bit relaxed, but they have matured based on the information in the industry. So, do your own homework, find the right thing for you, but I think we can all do maybe just a little bit better.
Yeah,
right?
No, that makes sense. We obviously deal with a lot of cybersecurity fraud in the real estate industry because of wire fraud. And I've never had any clients or people that are connected to me deal with that, but I've seen people who have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars because somebody spoofed into an email, sent it from the escrow office or from the agent or from whoever saying, hey, our instructions for wire change, send money over here, and now all of a sudden your $350,000 for that house that you just bought is gone.
It's gone.
And it's gone.
Yeah, and with the bank transfers, that's, you don't get that back.
No.
That's like handing someone cash.
That's right.
Right? Like that's really the transaction. Again, that trust. And so what we have in kind of that arena when we think about fraud, it is the motive, again, is monetary gain, right? Or monetary destruction. Keep in mind, maybe I don't need the money, but I don't want you to have the money to do the things that you want to do. So
Joker from Batman over here.
Right. Some people just want to see the world burn, right? So like in that monetary, with that monetary motive, and thinking about money as that it's just an understood resource, right? That everyone agrees to has value, right? So whether or not it is the cash that's in your bank account, the money that you put in escrow, the item that you purchased on eBay, right? These are the assets that you are giving your resources to. Now, if someone takes that, if someone sends you, a bricked phone with a lead weight in it, and you thought you bought the latest iPhone or the latest, Android, Samsung phone, you're going to be really upset.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Not as upset as the person who lost $500,000 in escrow.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's a whole different level.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's happened. It's happened here in Washington. It's happened all over the country.
It's happening all over the world.
Yeah.
But to say that if you did everything right, that it would never happen again,
Yeah.
is that's living in a fantasy, right? Because again, it's persistent threats. The way that the money may have been pilfered or siphoned may have been resolved, right? So like that attack vector may, we look at the data, we find a root cause, they got in this way. All right, let's defend that. Then let's monitor it. Let's make sure that we can detect it as soon as that happens again. And then let's stop the transaction. Let's put a kill switch in place so that we don't leak information or data or resources out, right? So that's a thing that can happen. But when we think about it again over time, that threat is still there.
Yeah. Yeah. They haven't gone anywhere.
They're not going anywhere. They're just going to continue to probe for another way to get in.
Yeah.
Right? So we have to continue to mature. We have to continue to expand with every new technology. Back to IoT, we have to think about what are those attack vectors. So now we're starting to see things called supply chain attacks, where they don't necessarily look to get into your computer directly. No. They will get into the software provider for the software that you've downloaded or that you're installing. And then in there is a back door that will open your computer up or your system up to attacks, right? So that's malware. Those are third-party vulnerabilities. So you're not necessarily solving the problem here. You're inviting the problem.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You downloaded
the thing with the bad thing in there, with the invitation.
Right.
Right? So it gives them a get out of jail free card, or hey, welcome.
Yeah.
You're sending that out just by installing that package. So you have to trust the software that you're installing, so that you don't make that invitation. Again, we're back to trust now.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see the trend.
You see? So like the threats are there. The world is chaotic. The world is dangerous at times. It doesn't matter what front you're fighting. Cybersecurity happens to be part of this one.
Right.
Right? But the dangers are there. So we have to just be more diligent. That's why I don't want to break some of those habits of patching, twice a day, and changing my passwords, frequently. But it's because I'm closer to the ground, I'm closer to the battle, that I feel like that's important to me. For some people, they may not feel like it's that important. Maybe the only thing that's really on the computers or their phones are the pictures of the kids and the grandkids, and that's great. You don't probably need to change your password every 2 months if that's all you're using it for.
Right.
You see what I mean? But if you're using it for personal banking, that's important to you. You've worked, you've accumulated resources. You're looking to do things with those resources, whether or not for yourself or for others. Like, there's a lot of energy that is stored there that you have the responsibility to treat well, right? So protect it. You have a lot of people who are, think about it this way. As a nonprofit, you can be out there servicing the community, helping out, like really trying to, have maximum impact for the least investment.
Yep.
Right?
That's the idea.
It's the probably the biggest hand-to-mouth operation in the world is the nonprofit sector, right? But I would say large nonprofits have extensive personal information databases, right? And in the midst of doing that good work, you still can be a source of, or the target of, an attack, because the information you have, the resources that you've collected through grants, through donations, through whatever, is attractive to others, right? So protect it, because you don't want to have the conversation of, well, we tried, but we got distracted.
Right.
We forgot to go do these things, and now all of these resources are gone, right? All of this energy that people poured into this movement, to this idea, this initiative, is now gone. It's evaporated. It's been stolen. And now we can't affect the mission, right? Now the mission fails. Again, that's how I'm processing it, right? And so each your own. But again, I think the objective remains the same, is you have to have trust. You have to build that trust with your partners, with your community. You have to, I'm a program manager, so I think about it from I'm going to say what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I said I'm going to do, and I'm going to prove it. I'm going to demonstrate it, right? So that's how you build trust. And then in that follow through, you have to be willing to learn, constantly learn, and enjoy it. because it's hard. This is hard work. It's tough. But the challenge is the reward, I think, for some people, maybe tune like me. The challenge is the reward. And so, just having that ongoing conversation and looking at those behaviors, those patterns out there, especially even in cybersecurity, not especially, but even in cybersecurity, is to look at those patterns out there and try to shape the world in a better way. Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's not. Again, listen, if you have a cigar with me again, maybe we'll have to do this again.
There we go.
With
get into a whole
outside.
different conversation.
That's right.
Let's talk about what you do outside of the digital space. It's kind of funny when I talk to cybersecurity guys, I always picture you like Tron, like actually plugging in and going into the computer,
fair.
right? That's always how I like to picture you guys.
Yep.
So let's talk about you unplugging from the digital space. You've been in the Puget Sound now for a while.
20+ years.
Yeah, it's a hot minute.
Yeah.
What do you love about the Puget Sound? What are your favorite things to do here?
Wow. What do I love about it? Well, behind you is a great scene, and I've been looking at it periodically, thinking to myself, it's the wilderness, the nature.
Yeah.
Right. Growing up in New York,
it's a very different culture.
It's a different jungle.
Yeah.
Right. It's a different jungle. It is the concrete jungle.
Right.
But when I was stationed in Alaska in that wilderness, to me it was bliss.
Yeah.
The quiet can be saturating. I don't know how, that's
in the best way possible,
that's the best way I can put it, is that the nothingness will fill you. Right? And so you tend to do a lot of self-reflection. You tend to do a lot of, I say, self-diagnosis, maybe even. But you do try to look at the challenges ahead versus the challenges of today. And when you're busy, you get trapped in the challenges of today. What I like about the Puget Sound is that there are so many different ways and spaces that people can interact day to day and really try to live the most out of the day. But then also, within an hour's drive or a train ride or a bus ride, you can remove yourself from that hustle and bustle and just find the quiet spaces. And there are hundreds of lakes in the area. There are hundreds of hiking trails, hundreds of bike paths. Some are more accessible than others. I will say that, we do have ways that we can do it better, right? Like, it's not all perfect. But this area does have the opportunity and potential to support so many other people in healthy ways. Here's the other thing I like about the area. It is smart. I'm telling you, this area is smart. It is well read. It is well studied, and it is engaging. And to be able to have, very, I would say, thought-provoking and challenging conversations with people of various backgrounds and ideologies is refreshing. Again, it reminds me of New York, right? Like, again, to be exposed to those many styles.
It's that melting pot
Yeah,
mentality.
Yeah. And, if you've not been in the area, there are more people from outside the area living in the area that have grown up in the area.
Yeah.
So it has that melting pot feel. And, there's a term around here called a Seattle freeze, where it's like, and I heard a great joke yesterday, which was, maybe we should call the hockey team that's supposed to be coming here the Seattle Freeze, right? And the slogan,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, right. And the slogan would be, we should catch up sometime. You know what I mean? Like, it was a fantastic joke, and I apologize to the person who, I stole that from, but I got to give full credit to him. But, there's that perception that the Seattle area is hard to make friends in, that it's hard to build a community in, and that's true. Like, I'm not going to say that that's not the fact. I felt like I've lived through it. But when I saw that as the problem, then I just decided, okay, well, then I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it that way, right? And I think that's the crazy opportunity that lies in front of Seattle, right? Is to accept and embrace that melting pot mentality and drop those imaginary lines.
That's all they are.
You see what I mean?
That's
Like,
all
it's
they
all
are.
in our head.
Yeah.
It's all in our head of, oh, you're an outsider. Oh, I can't talk to you. What does that mean? Like, I grew up on Earth, just like you, right? Like, right? Like,
Right.
it's an imaginary line that we put in front of ourselves. So I think, and I see Seattle in many ways as I've seen New York back then, and it's
Interesting.
struggling to identify itself again, right? Whereas before it was, the getaway or the escape, from the rest of the states before you get to Alaska even.
Yeah,
right. Then it moved into this, the vibe was very grunge and emo and very natural and really plugged into the nature.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's metastasized as well. That is still has its pockets, so that I would say the legacy hippie culture, right? But I think that's starting to metastasize because I think that generation encouraged education, right? And so the people here are well read, or the people here are informed about not just things going on locally, but things going on broadly. And that's why you see a lot of tech companies borrowing that intelligence capital, right? Like the people who are here have made a significant investment in raising the standard of living and education that's available. And there are many, many pockets that have not received that benefit of increased education opportunity, right? But again, another problem to solve. That's I maybe it's me. Maybe I'm an optimist and a hopeful person.
Right.
But I don't see problems as problems that should remain there forever. It's just something that hasn't been solved yet. So let's figure out what's most important to solve. Health and safety. Yeah, let's do that first.
Right.
Right.
Prioritize.
Again,
Yeah.
it's prioritize. And then when it talks, but then how do we do that well? Well, we have to be informed. We have to know or try to understand and empathize and sympathize with those that are not like us so that when the solution is presented, it helps everyone, right? And not just some. That's hard to do because you don't know everything, right? Remember, cybersecurity, we didn't have all the signals detected, so there's the unknown stuff that we have to try to understand a little bit better. Well, that's the homework too, right? Like as people, we have to do more of that. So he was talking about, some of the stuff I do outside of work. I wouldn't say I do them. I will say I try.
There you go.
Okay. I don't do them. So I try. And every day I just try to do a little bit better than I did the day before. I'm not always successful, but I try to be more successful every day than I was the day before, right? Increase my percentage of success, right? So I try to do a good job as, I would say, I don't know how to even call it, just a director of operations for a nonprofit. It's Nine Line Veteran Services. You can see us out on the web. But what we've done for the past, 7 years, I want to say it's 7 years. Whoa. And
Crazy.
yeah, and this is not me experiencing 7 years. I've been a board member for a year or so, just a little over a year. And I've been, I would say, closely related, adjacent to many of the board members for several years and given coaching and mentoring to those leaders. But what they do and what I, as a part of the we now do, is bring several service providers of various industries or different disciplines together at the Tacoma Dome once a year to provide free services to veterans, and with an emphasis on the homeless veteran population. So like it's a project, it's a passion project, just like this is for you. Like for me, it's just getting out there. Like you're spreading the word and the message, and for me, it's to get down there, get my hands dirty again. Yeah, getting that whole pride back.
That's right.
Just seeing a brother or sister that's down on their luck. Yeah. Man, I'm just putting it together, that may not have the facility to help themselves. Yeah. And then just giving them a helping hand. I don't care if you call it a handout. I don't care if you call it a help, but hand up. Yeah. I just want to make sure that they are suffering less and that they feel recognized, that they feel attention, because we all looking for that connection. Yeah. Right. So feel connected. know that you have a brotherhood and a sisterhood that are always there. Like, we're not going anywhere. Remember, we swore.
That's right. That's
right?
right.
And when you have that promise is always there.
Yeah.
It shows up in different ways. This is just how I think I express it. Is just by giving back to my brothers and sisters.
It's
there.
huge.
Yeah.
It's
So
huge.
we do that every year. We have the next one coming up. I want to say, and this again top of memory, but May 2nd.
Yeah.
I want to say in 2020.
Yeah.
We're going through logistics and the planning now. We formed a
Yeah.
committee just recently to get that off and going, and we have a check-in coming up soon. And I say that to the board, like, we got to get this going, right? We got a lot of work to do ahead of us. But every year it's a wonderful fight. And I say it's a wonderful fight to kind of get this organized and bring it together. We work with Pierce County. We work with the city of Tacoma. We work with Harborview and Humana Services, and we work with various. I'm not going to name names because there's privacy concerns there, but several I would say medical and dental providers, dental service providers, to bring free services up to include minor dental surgery to homeless veterans. So if they need a tooth extraction, let's do it. Let's get it done.
Dang.
Again, serious. Like minor surgeries, you have an infestation. Let's get that thing treated. Let's get it wrapped. Let's get you admitted, because you may not realize that you have services available to you that are at no cost. And maybe that was your barrier for entry. Maybe you thought that you weren't allowed in because you couldn't afford it. And then we were able to provide information to you that realized that's within your budget or free.
Right.
Right. And therefore, go take advantage of it. Right. Like, it's there for you to consume. That's part of the compensation of being a veteran.
That's right.
So let's get you plugged in. So we're not bringing the service to you directly, but we are trying to get as much information to share with you to enable you to suffer less and to put you in a better position to contribute more to the community. Right?
Well, and there's so many of those guys. I've met a lot of people that deal with those kind of life struggles.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're looking for a mission, right? A lot of them want to be a part of something bigger than them, and they just haven't found it. Mm-hmm. And man, to take over the Tacoma Dome, I mean,
well, we give it a shot.
Small thing.
We try, right?
Yeah.
Like we do try. It's we do the convention center, and it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
Like, no one gets paid for this. Man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm telling you, and I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of professionals are showing up to provide medical, dental, to provide finance and housing, to provide benefits, to you have not, like, it is, the convention center is full of tables and people who are willing to just go, hey, you're a vet. What's going on?
Right.
What can we do?
Right.
To make your life a little bit easier? And that's, like, it is such a humbling feeling to be in that room. Like, it's not empowering for me. Like, I am almost ashamed to be in the room with those types of folks, because they're doing the hard work. You know what I mean? I just get to be a part of it. Like, I'm hard work adjacent now. Like, hey, look, I got a buddy that's doing awesome stuff, man. Like, that's the energy I get out of it, right? That's the satisfaction I get. But we do that. And then, like, we partner with National Guard and the Armory to get free equipment, like sleeping bags, like, whoobies.
Nice.
Everyone
needs a whoopee.
Everybody gets a whoopee, but if you're homeless, you really need it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we get those packets and bundles out and hand them to veterans for free. It's just, hey, come on in.
Right.
You need this stuff? You're destitute? Yeah. Well, what can we do? Let's have the conversation. But, bro, you're safe here. I'm a vet.
Right.
Sometimes
It's a big bridge
it's
that can be got there.
Yeah. Like just to say, hey, I'm a vet. Like, that just brings down all kinds of barriers.
Yeah.
And then you see these people pour out and go, man, I just didn't know where to go, and I heard about this thing from a friend, and I need meds.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got PTSD. I can't afford it. I need meds. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
All right.
Let's get you checked in.
Yeah.
Let's start one.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to lose track of you. Right. Yep. We want to make sure that you're getting what you need, because now you're part of the family.
Yeah.
Right. Now you're part of the family. hey, welcome back, cuz.
You're right.
Right? Welcome back. So let's come in, let's get you treated, let's get you triage, let's get you assessed, prioritize your needs. If you're homeless, let's solve that problem first.
Yeah.
We're not thinking about retirement planning for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, priorities. Let's figure out what we can do in the space and time that we have. Let's meet people where they are. Let's be vulnerable as they are being with us, because that's the only way that we can get their trust. That's the only way that some people will stay in.
Yeah.
You can invite them in, but that's the only time that they will stay was when they feel like that you've earned their trust.
Yeah.
Right? So we get that, we build that bridge, and then we just try to reach out and help as many people as we can. We're gonna have some it's gonna be a flurry of activity all the way up into the day. We're gonna have challenging schedules because again, it's 100% volunteer effort, so there's no one on staff who's 100% dedicated to making this happen. And the board and the executive committee, we're really focused on 2020 being a breakout year. We're looking to at least double the outreach from last year.
Nice.
I have not shared this with the board, but I have projections and expectations of how we're going to perform over the next several years. It's good to set aspirational goals, right? Because if you don't, you'll never get there, right? So I say shoot for the moon. If you miss, you're in outer space, dude, and that's still awesome. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, we're going to try to do more. We're going to try to bring more services to the veteran community. We're going to have a lot of people who are going to be retiring from the service, right? We're starting to see, the trend is that fewer people are entering into the service. Mm-hmm. So the population has to become denser. So the challenges that they face are going to be, potential of overwork, right? PTSD, how does the service continue to persist with that? We're going to have to work closely with our service members, right? While they are in the service to understand what transition looks like. So we're trying to build that gateway, right? So there's a lot of opportunity out there to, again, just help people out. And, in the nonprofit area, that's kind of where I spend a lot of my time.
I love it. There's so much need out there. And, obviously as a vet myself, I couldn't agree more. If there's, you think about being in combat, I went to Iraq, I went on combat missions, and if one of my guys to my left or right needed something, they got it. It wasn't even a question.
It was never a question,
yeah,
right?
It's just not even a question.
you need that?
You need help? I got you.
How much
right?
I got?
Right.
Oh, man, I don't have it all. Yo, everybody.
Right.
And it's the call.
And that's exactly what it is. And I feel like they find, vets get out and, the mission continues. And they, their brothers and sisters move on and they kind of step off the train.
Yes.
And then look around and go, what do I do now?
I think we all go through that.
Yeah.
All service members and veterans go through that to a certain extent. Remember the guy that I told you drove me from at Wainwright that morning?
Yep.
He just recently retired.
Yeah.
Right? So that long ago, we were in the service together, and he just recently retired. And interestingly enough, I think we both have gone through that transitional period where I looked at him and saw, man, he stayed in the service and went full term. That's a vet. I'm not a vet. That's a vet. Right. But then he shared with me, he's like, dude, I'm so proud of you and what you've accomplished. And I'm like, dude, no way. I'm just trying.
Right.
You know what I mean? You've done it. I'm just giving it a go. But he tells me these things, and it's humbling again when brother sisters out there, and he's like, dude, keep shining.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not me, man. It's still you. You did the work, man. I left. I didn't quit, but I left. My time was up, and I went on and did other things. But but we again, we crossed paths, we ricocheted, and now we have perspectives on each other's lives that are totally different, still full of mutual respect.
Yeah.
So he's looking at me, he's like, you're doing great. And I'm looking at you like, dude, you're doing awesome. And you're still teaching people. What is the matter with you? Aren't you tired? So no, that perspective of just trying to always, I guess, look within, seeing what you have to offer, is the first challenge, right? Like you're not always going to have an answer. I know I didn't always have an answer.
Yeah.
I would even say, goodness, over the last couple of years, did I actually land on an answer?
100%. Yeah.
And so, once you find that motivation, that drive, and can get a better acquainted with your North Star, your goals, personally, then like the effort is zero, right? Like it becomes effortless at that point to want to get back and contribute. It becomes effortless to want to lift others up. It becomes effortless to want to collaborate, to participate, because you just see that as the means to the end of just like to land on that personal mission of just helping others who struggle. When you land at that mission, you're really thinking about it as, I will do whatever it takes to help others. Like, it doesn't matter how hard it is. Like, it's okay, because it's the right struggle to have, if it's worth having, right? If that's the hurdle, fine. Let's either get around it or go through it. Like, that's the option. So we're not stopping. You know what I mean? And I see that business, like we push the envelope in crazy, crazy ways. We are pushing the envelope in the cybersecurity industry. Pushing the envelope in the nonprofit space. We are pushing the envelope, in our understanding of wellness, right? And when we think about the Puget Sound and what it's, given to me, it's that idea of personal wellness. And wellness means different things to everyone,
Right.
But it's really about, are you content and satisfied with who you are in the world? And if not, what are you doing to get there? Like that's to me the question being answered with wellness, right? Because if you're 100% satisfied, right, then your body behaves a certain way, right? You're getting enough sleep, you're doing all those things, you're eating well, right? Like, are you getting enough? That's great. But sometimes, and this is what's interesting to me, is you don't realize that you're unsatisfied, right? And only recently, and I have to thank my wife all the time for this, that we recently started like this eating thing, right? Like we're all, so she's a professional, I'm a professional in the corporate world. Our kids are older now, so they're not at home, so we get to focus on, our outreach a little bit. And we were like, God, we really need to take better care of ourselves so that we can be put in the best position for others, right? To help out when the call comes, right? That's what luck is. Preparation and opportunity, right? When those two meet, that's your luck, right? But you have to be ready for the moment. Not to paraphrase Eminem or anything, right? But we started thinking about it like, hey, we need to sleep better. And so we're giving that a try. I am wildly unsuccessful with sleeping better.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's a hard one.
You could look at my Fitbit and see 4 hours. That's about average for this guy, right? 4 hours of sleep a night. It's not good.
No.
Right? And I know I do better when I sleep more. But that's my trade-off, right? Like I'm trading my sleep a little bit to do those other things because I couldn't fit all of the other things in if I got more sleep. And there are ways to do better, right? I'm not going to give up. That's not the end. So I'm looking at ways of doing better. I'm looking at ways to optimize. So we have to eat better so that the sleep that we get is much more impactful, right? We have to do our rest. We have to think of our mental health and take care of that too. So if counseling is needed, if therapy is needed, like we're open to it. But I get back to this because she put me on this Whole30 diet. And I say it that way on purpose. It was one of those, hey, we're getting married. We want to look good, right? Okay, good, awesome. We agree. And she's like, okay, so we should try out this thing. We should eat better, like eat whole foods. Not at Whole Foods, but eat better food. And you know what, honestly, like we have the opportunity to do so. So let's try it. And it's a 30-day thing. Yeah. You see that attitude?
Yeah.
You see that attitude? It's
30
like,
days.
oh, you put it 30 days. I can do it. I can do it. Now it's a challenge. It's a bet.
Right.
Like it's a bet. You know how I like challenges.
Yep.
You see, so she knew how to sell it to me, right?
She knows you well,
She
obviously.
knows me well enough to go, hey, it's only 30 days. And I was like, I could do anything for 30 days. Let's do this. Let's get it in. But she's like, okay, so we started this diet on January 2nd and now do so every year.
Nice.
We go through a 30-day cycle of, healthy cleanse every year. So one's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it because, the holiday partying is taxing.
Brutally delicious.
It's brutally delicious, exactly. So I'm looking forward to it. But what we do is, we try to eat clean, and then we recognize, as has been coached and is widely available on the internet, they talk about your shifts in mood as you go through this cleanse. And in the beginning, it's hard, or it's very difficult because you realize that there's a lot of food prep, so it's taxing on time. And then after a while, you're like, okay, I fit it into my schedule. I'm getting down to this routine. But then your body starts to reject it, and it's going, dude, where's my sugar?
Right.
I need my milk. I need that right now. And then you start getting angry and irritable all the time.
Right.
Like everything is triggering. But then you get past that because that's just your body, getting out of habit, right? So you're adopting a new habit. So at about 2 weeks in, you start to go, hey, I never realized that before. Like the mind starts to wake, it starts to waken up a little bit more. You start to, your observation becomes clearer. You have clearer thoughts. And then towards the end, like you had limitless energy, almost limit. Like I am not kidding you. And I'll tell you this, several years ago, I was probably 60 pounds heavier than I am today.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's because of that, but the first time we tried it, I was already in this downward trend because I was already wanting to look a little better for the wedding.
Yeah.
But doing that, it changed my perception of food to understand that, hey, like habits and traditions are attacks. Be open to change. Be vulnerable. Like, I had to have conversations with my mom to go, hey, Ma, all those times I love cornflakes? I found out that I'm sensitive to milk. Oh, man. And I used to eat a lot of cornflakes. Like, that was the thing back then. And, again, I don't regret it because that's just what we did. I didn't know better. I didn't know I was a little bit sensitive to lactose. Not intolerant or lactose intolerant, but, I realized that I was a little bit inflamed after eating ice cream. I still eat ice cream, by the way. Like, I want to be clear on that. Like, you're not going to stop me from that, because, I think the saying goes, everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Including moderation. Like, right? Like, if everything is included, moderation's included in that. So I added that in the end because sometimes you just have to give that cheat day. And that's what you see a lot of, these eating fads or diets or patterns doing is saying, just take this away from yourself for a while. Then every once in a while, treat yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And that's okay. But remember what the roots are. What do you need? Like, you don't need everything. You just need enough. And then share the rest with others, right? Like that's, to me, is the behavior. So it helped reinforce that sense of community. A diet helped reinforce a sense of community. A diet helped reinforce a sense of wellness. A diet helped reinforce a sense of, oh yeah, by the way, I have a friend who I'm getting married to who is helping me do this stuff, and we're living together and we're building and we're having new experiences together. So if you were able to do that as part of a community, like you're building relationships, and then you're going to learn different cuisines, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like that experience has opened it up as far as our cuisines of choice and things that we had considered as staples. Like we just threw the book out the window, man, and went, hey, let's just figure it out. Let's have fun with it. And so now with new challenges with that. So, in the spring, I think I'm going to start my own garden. I'm going to have fun with that, give that a shot. And as I tell this story, like I'm sharing this with you, I realize that is something that my parents have already been through. My dad, to this day, loves to grow a garden. I didn't realize that was something that was cool. You know what I mean?
Not something you think about.
Right.
Back then,
As a kid back then, you're like, hey, give me McDonald's.
Right.
I want to eat
lettuce?
that stuff.
Nah.
It's like, lettuce, what's that? Animals eat that. I'll eat the animals. That's how I'll get it. And that's fine, right? And then the way it's supposed to work, that's food pyramid. That's the food chain.
That's right.
The circle of life and all of that. But, you think about it and you go, yeah, I'm a little bit older, maybe a little bit wiser, maybe. So based on all of the experience I've had, based on all of the things that I've done, based on all the people I've shared with, hopefully I can make a better decision today. And that's why I keep saying I'm just trying, I'm just going to give it a shot. I don't do it. I'm just going to try it. And then if I make a mistake, awesome. We learn, we pivot, we move forward, and we keep going until we can call the mission complete.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So until there is a veteran that doesn't need anything,
Right.
right? We're going to keep pushing that nonprofit.
I love it.
Until there are no more persistent threats on the internet. Right? Until that day comes, cybersecurity will still be a field in an industry. And I'm glad to be a part of both of those kind of places because I feel like I just get to plug in.
Yeah.
And now that you raise a family in the Puget Sound, in the Pacific Northwest, it is home. I do have my heart in the Virgin Islands.
Sure.
Right? Like my earliest memories were there. My heart belongs to Brooklyn. You know what I mean? Like my formative years were there. The army and my family my military family, always will be there for me, and I will always be there for them. But where I think I could call home today is definitely the Pacific Northwest, and that's why I decided that I wanted to give back in this community and found that nonprofit and friends who were part of that nonprofit and started saying, dude, you guys could do so much more. Like, seriously,
Right.
Get out there and do it. And then I was reminded, well, if you want it done, you should just get out there and do it yourself. Stop asking people to do stuff. And I went, yeah, challenge accepted.
Yeah, right.
Right?
When you put it like that.
Yeah, when you put it like that, you call my BS. Man, I guess I have to own it. So, all right, let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. And
right.
I started asking how I could volunteer, how I could help. And I just kept challenging the status quo. Because I'm like, well, that's BS. That should not be the reason.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever this challenge is, that should not be the reason why we stop. That should not be the reason why we quit. Why are we here in the first place? Can we identify that mission? Right? Can we look at what we do and have it embrace the mission? That's why the mission continues.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And my mission is facilitated through the nonprofit. It's not that I am the nonprofit, right? It's just that I want others to suffer less. I want to help others achieve more. I want people to feel safe. I want people to feel protected and happy and encouraged to invent, right? And you can't invent if you feel like you're on the defense, right? That's when some of the greatest inventions came out. It was either necessity or boredom. So if you're on the defense, right, that's where the necessity comes in, but that typically leads to negative inventions. Whereas freedom and the capacity to think and just behave freely leads to positive inventions, typically. So I like to create a safe space, let people invent, and try to keep people safe from doing so. And those that are not able to get to that space, I try to help them get there. See what I mean? So
Absolutely.
Again, that's my mission. And then that's facilitated through the nonprofit in a certain way. It's facilitated through Salesforce in a certain way. It's facilitated through Microsoft and the prison and the military and my family and friends and associates and colleagues and everyone else in the community in the same way. So I guess I just enjoy what I do. And I'm glad to be here to try to get that message out. Hopefully, reach out there and touch somebody, and hopefully just lifted maybe someone's spirits or encouraged people to reach out and seek help.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to be putting all of your socials in the description, so if people want to reach out to you. Thank you for being on the episode or ask any questions.
Time to polish that up a bit.
No kidding. Yeah, right. No, but thank you so much for being on the show. Love your ideology and everything that you've got your hands into, and thanks for giving us some expertise in the cybersecurity market. That's such a super.
That's right.
I'm enthralled with what that's going to look like in 10 years.
Oh,
I mean,
in 10
years, the speed of it is going to be just insane. So.
It's going to be goofy because if you think about to touch on the deep fake thing, right? Now, what if I could deep fake your identity?
Right.
right, and do facial recognition. Like the telemetry, the optics have to be so good that it has to be able to discern fake from real.
Yeah.
Is it a picture of you, or is it you that is actually Face ID?
Yeah.
Right.
There was this was just last week, I think. There was some kind of AI that deep faked Joe Rogan.
Yes.
Like I can now sound and look like Joe Rogan.
Precisely.
Which, yeah. I mean, I'll do that all day.
So
but
now all you're doing is talking, and
Right.
it's like Joe Rogan is saying your words.
That's right.
Right. So like, how do viewers differentiate that or know where that line crossed?
Yeah.
Right.
I guess
So-
the idea of it would be they can't. I mean, that's the whole.
You would hope.
That's the mission, right?
That's the mission. You hope, right? You hope, but you don't want to stifle that innovation either, right? So you can't just put on rules and say that's wrong, right? Because that stifles the innovation. The opportunity is still there, but we have to be better citizens of that opportunity. We have to be better stewards of the responsibility, and affect a positive change, and be guardful or be mindful of the negative impacts that it could bring. Right, so atomic energy is very important. Nuclear weapons are bad, right? Like we can make that clear distinction, but it is all based on the science of the atom. So, like, it gave us some great benefits of near limitless energy and things of that sort. But the dangers are to pollution. The dangers are to destruction. So we have to behave responsibly within this discipline, right? If you parallel that to physics, you could do that to most other things. It's just, how do we show up? How do we remain authentic and be ourselves so that we can be free to invent? And then how do we do that in a responsible way? Hopefully, in the sense that it doesn't elicit or invite attack or bad behaviors from others, right? So that we're not oppressing others, we're not challenging others, we're allowing others to, have the same opportunities that we have. And that we're not, subjugating others, right? Unless they volunteer to do so through a EULA. No, I kid. But no, it is really about just protecting people's, spaces.
Yeah.
In that way.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Francis Charles, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
It was a real honor to have you in the studio.
Absolutely.
And, a year or two from now, we might have to have you back in for an update. And
to see how things have gone?
See how things are going,
That'd
right?
be amazing.
Absolutely,
That would be amazing.
Man.
I appreciate
All
this.
right. Hey.
All right, friend.
Have a great weekend, man.
Thank
See
you.
you next time.
You too.
Hey, guys. Thanks for watching this week's episode. We hope you really enjoyed it. If you love the people and stories of the Puget Sound, please support this podcast by reviewing us and rating us on Apple Podcasts. Stay tuned next week as we continue to curate the underground.